Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the RHAP B&B for week 10 of Survivor 47. And these are jazz hands. We're doing our own touchdown dance as we bid adieu to the man who did so just 1 week ago. We're talking about a pretty big episode that not only took out Gabe, but simultaneously 8 shots in the dark from the game, too. And much like Teeny's hole-filled container, I look at the B&B and say, Liana, Boraas, that's my bag, baby.
I was going to say, that's on fire. But not in the Jeff Probst podcast way, but, in a, this is a chaos sort of dumpster fire sort of thing. But anyway, what a great start to the podcast. Yes, this episode was super interesting to me because I also think, and we're definitely going to get into it, that this sort of seems to lay the path for how I think the rest of the season is going to play out. So I'm really looking forward to talking about that, especially with our guest this week.
Yes, because while it is a B&B, we've got a little bit of flavor mixed in, some cream to our cookies, if you will, and the most delectable sounding cake on earth. It's the Globe Bowl, as this person coined it last year, has reemerged to talk about this episode. What is this? A crossover episode. I'm so thrilled to welcome in the person who knows a thing or two about the dangers of throwing away your shot. It is the one, the only Shannon Guss.
Yes, I love that you remembered Globe Bowl because I really think it works. I think it's the kind of thing that time has made only better. And the collab is good. The collab B&B Bowl, the collab Bowl. No. Well, that'll sound better next time. See, that's the thing, is the collab Bowl will sound better next time. And that, Mike, don't look at me like that.
Are you having a stroke?
Yeah, you don't look at me like that. You do this all the time, and I'm the crazy one for saying collab.
Oh yeah, listen, this glass house is in smithereens around me.
Like the fact that when Mike Bloom is looking at you like you're crazy, you know that you need to pare it back, and that is that's the metric. But I'm really excited to talk about this episode. Really excited to talk about it with the two of you. I was stressing as a Genevieve fan who went to bat for her last week. I'm not saying it went well, but I was like, if she goes next week, she will humiliate me, and it didn't go well. But I'm really, really glad that she survived. And I was, and I know I'm invested when I'm like my heart is racing, so that's good.
I mean, to be fair, I think any stress that you and the collective fandom might have felt, it was very palpable on Genevieve's face as well. I mean, I think she has low-key emerged for me as, honestly, one of the bigger characters of the season, whether it is this as Annie McCoy, the silent assassin mindset, where she even talks at the beginning of this episode about, I don't like to be emotionally connected because it doesn't allow me to make these big eviscerating moves that I want to, but just to see her face basically turn into silly putty and go through all the emotions at once from it's almost like she worked her way backwards through the 5 stages of grief, where she kind of started in acceptance going into tribal council, and then she votes and she's like, either you have an idol and I'm screwed, or you don't and I'm not screwed. This sucks. Bye. To, her immediately admitting defeat as soon as the second vote comes in for her, to her just, I would say, almost turtle-like awestruck look when she says, oh, I can't believe it, with those big glasses as well. Just absolutely incredible. One of the many reasons why I'm happy that Genevieve survived the vote.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, the magnify glasses certainly also help to magnify the expression. So I think that that's a big part of it. And for me, the funniest thing is if you had asked me in the first couple of weeks of the season, or if you'd told me that Genevieve is going to be this really big character, I never would have believed you, right? Totally. This is someone who was so purple throughout the first few episodes and now has really emerged as such a strategic force and a main player in the discussion in the merge.
Yeah, and I feel like if she was going backwards through the 5 stages of grief, she missed bargaining, and Survivor is all bargaining. And
no, they already did bargaining. That was earlier in the episode.
Yeah, well, they and that was, and we'll talk about a lot about the rice negotiation, which actually turned into a negotiation because, as Steven said on Know It Alls, I was like, the auction's not an auction. This negotiation is not a negotiation, and Carl thankfully made it one. But I will say that, yeah, I agree with Liana. I feel like for me, the whole season. And maybe this is, wrong for the new era, but I can see how it's laid out here. And and I criticize the lack of bargaining because I feel like for 9 people in this episode, 5 made a really bad move that did not benefit them. And 4 are in a great spot where it was hugely beneficial for them. And I'm like, well, if there were 5 where I feel like it didn't go well and there were 4 where it did, I'm like, if only the 5 could have made something happen, and that's the bargaining, and we'll talk about it. But yeah, I feel like this was a big, fulcrum vote for the rest of the season.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Am I out on a limb here when I say this is my favorite episode of the season? so far. I really liked Genevieve's other big move, which was the Keyshawn boot, but it feels to me like, again, between some of the stuff that was happening, like there was a lot of strategy that was happening, but there was some personality involved as well. Of course, the minute-long montage, game-long montage, it seems, of Sue digging in on Kyle, all the stuff going on with the negotiation that we'll talk about later on. I just feel like, and maybe to your point, Shannon, if this ends up becoming like the most important vote of the season, it will be seen even more so as a big episode.
I feel like the season for me is very consistent. Like last season was like very low lows and like I thought extremely high highs. That got it to its probably my second favorite New Era season. Whereas this I feel like it's probably like 4 of 7, and like every episode is like enjoyable, but none to me are like. Yeah, exactly.
It was fated to be there. That's a lot. That's a lot. Let me count on my hands.
Yeah. So, I think that every episode to me has been enjoyable, consistent. I don't see one has been particularly terrible, but I don't like look back and think any episode stands out as much as like the great New Era episodes for me. And that's why this season, and I'm like, I feel like I'm being critical. I've enjoyed the whole thing. I think it's like right in the middle for me.
I think the only episode that I can think of that stands out to me as a singular episode, because I do agree with you, Shannon. I think it's been overall consistent, and I can't like pinpoint this specific episode except for Rome's boot. I think that that's the only one that really stands out to me because of the editors just burying him getting to sit in the chair, Sam going, oh, good for him. Like this,
good for him was hard. That was really a read.
That's the one episode that really, really stands out for me. Is that the best episode of the season? I don't know, but it's the one that definitely stands out the most. I think the reason why the season has felt so consistent is because the gameplay has really been consistent, and we've seen powers shift even in the individual or the pre-tribe, pre-merge stage. We even see some power flip-flops. So I think that that's kept it consistently interesting, both pre and post-merge.
I've been thinking a lot about that as well in terms of like, and I think there's been tweets around like New Era gameplay and the New Era casting, and everyone's a fan and everyone's smart, and there's been stuff about this. And I've thinking about it a lot this week because I'm like, damn, it did not go well for Genevieve. She survived, but like by the skin of her teeth, and not even, I think, due to anything she was doing, due to the fact that Tuku was more pressing and Gabe became more pressing. And like, I think Genevieve's out the door next. But I'm like, it's very, very hard, compared to like someone like Kim Spradlin to play a Kim Spradlin game. Or we see like, if you're one lion out in front, what Kim was, what like David in Australian Survivor, how do you win? You need players often to play against their self-interest. Now, I do think that 5 players here did play against their self-interest, but I do think New Era players are more likely to play in their self-interest. That someone like Andy or Teeny or Rachel isn't going to be like, thank you so much, Sol or Genevieve or anyone for saving me. Let me do the emotional thing. Let me do, the less logical thing. And New Era players will do that. So the way that we see New Era winners win is one of 2 ways, mostly that those self-interested players, that the Mariannes won't be like, I love you, Omar. I'll have you as a groomsman in my wedding, but I'm still going to vote you out. So we see that happen. And so you can't win as an individual lion. You can be group lions like Reba, even like Tika, and then you differentiate yourself. And those are the 2 ways. So for Genevieve to be so out in front as a lion, very, very hard to win that as a New Era game. And you think, well, maybe she's that special, but I don't even know if that specialness exists with New Era players who will eventually get to something where they're going to be logical because this is like the smart super fan New Era casting.
Yeah, I mean, to ape from another show, you can bounce checks in Survivor, especially in the New Era. I do feel like the age of like, I owe you is over. You might want to continue to work with someone because you like them, but hell, look, last week when Rachel's like, yes, Sol did single-handedly save me from doom, but I still got to join the group and vote him out here. And that's also what's really interesting as well, to your point, Shannon, about who may not have been like working for or against their best interests, is that despite how much the power has shifted back and forth, I think we still are in what I would say is also kind of a prevalent New Era mindset, which is like kind of sticking with a majority, especially when things are so turbulent. It's sort of like, well, if things are swaying in this direction, let me hop on board so that I'm not someone who's left out of the vote. Because we can see, as an example of Sue and Kyle, like what happens when you vote in the minority. And I love that Sue, from a story perspective, now sort of has that hand dealt in her direction, where we can certainly talk about it, about with the Gabe vote, were Caroline, were Kyle making moves like specifically on their own merits to say, yes, I want to take out Gabe here? Or was it more so, hey, there's 5 people. We know where the votes are going. And so let's just hop on board to make sure that we don't stick out like sore thumbs and especially really, propagate this idea of Tuku strong until the end.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think we see a couple moments where it seems like both Kyle and Caroline are of their own volition volunteering Gabe, but also so Kyle, let's say, for example, when he goes on the reward, of course he brings up Gabe's name, but almost like, of course he brings up Gabe's name, right? Because it almost feels like that's what he should be doing. And also it helps to keep him in the loop if they think that he's willing to go on board. So then he can find out, okay, yeah, I am safe in the off chance that he doesn't win immunity. And then Caroline also goes up to Andy and says, hey, I'm concerned about Gabe, but who knows? Maybe she overheard Gabe's name being talked about. And so did that to sort of like save herself. I don't know what the situation is. But at least we see some instances where they're doing it on their own, but it's tough to know if they actively wanted Gabe out or did so because they didn't want to be the tall puppy.
Oh, maybe it was Caroline being cheerleader mode as she likes to do. She's like, oh, you want to vote out Gabe? That's great.
I support that. Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Kill a cheerleader. That's the bad type of cheerleader who's like, yeah, I want to vote out my ally. It's like, wait, what? Don't be supportive like that. That's not the kind of supportive. But I'm like very critical of Caroline, especially in this episode. And I love Caroline. And Kyle to an extent, but I expect more from Caroline. Like, I really think Caroline's a great player. And so basically where I feel about it is, and they talk about this at the very end of Know-It-Alls, but when Gabe and Genevieve, the 2 targets, are talking at the end, I really thought that was going in the Rob Stefanino direction, right? Like,
right, of like, let's work together. Let's figure out.
Yeah, because it was like, it's one of us. And they were just like, yep. I'm like, not yep. And I do think, like, if we talk about like people not acting in their best interest, I don't think that this was due to like an emotional response. Like, I do think, and Stephen talked about this in Know-It-Alls, it's probably a lack of time. I think Genevieve, who's been really calm and like been able to kind of work through the game in slow motion, was overwhelmed by this change in position, and maybe like it doesn't come to you in the chaos. When you're both targets, it's hard to think about it. But yes, if you like come together, and we can talk about it for a Rachel or a Sam, really good options. It benefits everyone. I put it into Excel. I ran the simulations. We can talk about it, but it is beneficial for everyone. 2 extremes, especially Tuku, there is literally no negative. And for someone like Caroline and Kyle, if they don't have them, obviously they can't do it. But for Caroline, when you know the vote, you make it happen. Like, Liana, I love that you're responding to this, and you seem, if you disagree with me now, I'm going to be surprised based on your reaction.
Oh my God. No. I had literally the same reaction. As soon as Genevieve's laying in that hammock and Gabe goes up to her, I was like, because I'm immediately start running through the scenarios for the other Tukus, right? Because you're talking about the 4 Tukus along with Genevieve, that's 5. They can vote out Sam, they can vote out Rachel, they can vote out someone else, because as Kyle has even expressed, once Gabe goes, even more of a target on him. Yes. Caroline has said, what did we hear when it was Rachel's time to go, when Saul saved her? She was like, she's my favorite. That's why she's got to go.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. And then Sue, obviously, Sue will save Gabe, who she loves, and was going to vote with Gabe anyway. So to me, it felt like an absolute no-brainer for that group. And then they have 4 out of 8. Like, that's, felt like no-brainer.
They'd have 5 of and then Tuku would have 4 of 8 exactly.
And what I would offer is, let's say you're Caroline and you're like, God, there's still 5 together. Then you pull suicide and you say, hey, it's gonna be Gabe tonight. Can you play your idol on her? Which I think Sue would do it. Like, how many times have we seen? And basically her edit has kind of become, besides I hate Kyle, I love Gabe. And I think she would have played the idol on him if she was sort of given the tip off. Because as Gabe said, like, if the goal is in the intermediary, at least, to get the Tukus as far as you can, then expend any resources you need to be able to get to that point. And so I guess then the question is brought up, because Gabe actually brought up to me that he was thinking of jumping out, against the Tukus, should he have survived. That he had thought about multiple paths towards the end, and obviously the Tukus pulling the Reba would be great, but he was also thinking, okay, maybe I go to the end with Teeny, maybe I go to the end with Sam, etc., etc. Maybe someone like Caroline is already seeding those things to go further with other people. Maybe she's pulling a Genevieve and hoping like, hey, if I leave Sue out of this, I'll be able to come back tomorrow and we can repair it and we look more fractured as a group. But yeah, this did feel like, in my opinion, probably the first major misstep she's had this game.
Well, I mean, I don't think you even need the idol. And I think that would be like quite a big expense. I mean, I think that if you're, worried Gabe will come for you, I think Gabe will have a lot less agency to do it. I mean, he's the name, he's the target. I think you can do it. I think for Caroline, she's such a logical player, and here's the path in front of you. You have the information. And for me, if I'm Caroline, I think she, of her own volition, went to Andy and said, I want to make this move. He's like, there already is a move. That to me, I wouldn't do it anyway, because I would want to go to the 8 with 4 tukus. And I think that a lot of us as commentators are like, just do it. And there's just so much internal discord that they won't do it. And it just feels so obvious that that's what they should do. But yeah, I mean, even kind of beyond the numbers of it all, just coming there with a plan that's already happening without you is like, oh, I was about to lose in this vote. So piling on isn't really going to make it a win for me. And from a credit perspective, I feel like Caroline, the perception of the wounded birds is concerning for me. And she doesn't get this move on Gabe. Like she is piling on to something that was going to happen without her. I'd be out just for that, even if it had been a good move for her, which I don't even think it was. So then you have all the information. You do not need the idol. You go to Gabe and to Sue and to Genevieve. Gabe and Genevieve, you're the 2 targets. It's a 50-50 toss-up. Want it to not be a toss-up? Like, want to put that into your own hands? Sue obviously is already in. That's 4. And Kyle is even verbalizing the reasons Gabe shouldn't go. And Gabe said it in the X interview, like using up the Gabe shield while Kyle is immune is a big loss. I mean, Kyle isn't a threat because of the 4 tukus. That's not the problem. He's going to be an individual challenge threat regardless. So coming, with that and the fact that Gabe is good for all these people, it's all in their best interest. And then you get to a point where you're 4 of 8 tukus, then you hopefully get everyone on an easy Genevieve consensus, which is, and it's still best for Genevieve because she at least is definitely surviving the night. And who knows what happens from there. But you go to Genevieve, then you're 4 of 7. And then sure, now let's look at taking out the Kyles, the Gabes, and getting the credit for it and having it be closer to the end. It's such a clear path for me. I really think it's a winning path. And I think she just went in the other direction, and I'm upset about it because I think maybe with more time, maybe with, more clarity, I know she's a very logical player. I know that this was all probably happening in chaos, but there is the win. I feel like I see it, and
they did that rice negotiation one day too late. She had a secret scene where she was like said she was actually really struggling, almost like putting words and thoughts together out there because of the mounting hunger. And so if she had won that cookies and cream cake, this could have all gone in a very different direction.
It's so hard because I'm like, do the big brain thing on no energy and resources, and I understand that, but it's just for me. I literally it's very hard for me to see how Caroline wins now because I think she needs a big perception change. And where is that move coming? Even if she gets taken to the end now, I think maybe it'll be to beat her because of the perception of her as maybe a quieter player, maybe in like her demographic as well. And I think that I can see the path to give her control to then start cutting it up and making the moves. And this would be a great move, but I don't think it would have poked her head out that much. Because there still would have been, and I said this with Genevieve last week, but there still would have been the Gabes, the Kyles, Genevieve, and other threats. I think it would have been perfectly placed for her.
I have 2 thoughts. The first is, why is cookies and cream cake like the best cake? Because when Jeff was like, do you want to know what kind of cake it was? And then, oh my God, not cookies and cream. Is cookies and cream have some sort of reputation that I don't know about?
I mean, it's my far and away my favorite. Like, if there is anything,
favorite cake. Mike's is like, yes, it is my favorite cake.
My favorite flavor.
I would drop to my knees.
Cookies and cream is your favorite flavor, if anything?
Like
of
ice
anything.
cream?
Yeah, I mean, of ice cream, that's very traditional.
Cake, milkshake, like anything involving dairy and sweets. Like, if there's a cookies and cream option, I'm almost like, everyone loves Oreos. Oreos is objectively the best cookie. And so you're just like blending it up and combining it with ice cream. Like, what? What is there?
It is good. Cookies good, cream good. It's not my favorite. I need some peanut butter in there for something to be my favorite.
I mean, I would agree with you though, Liana, that like this does not sound like a selling point for, I'm going to say, at least like 75% of the population. Like, luckily they caught the 25% in Gabe, who seems like he saw Jesus Christ in his mind's eye when he ends up, hearing about the cake in general. But yeah, I don't know why this ended up being, not only that, the punctuation point at the end of his usually salacious sentence describing the sanctuary.
Well, and I liked it because when he was like, do you want to know what it is? Like, he didn't even just reveal it, that there was some extra reveal to the whole cookies and cream nonsense. But anyway, I digress. So cookies and cream aside, the other thought that I had about this whole Caroline situation as well, which kind of gets into what narratives were being set up with moving on to the rest of the season. So what I see as an outside observer is Caroline not being included in this sort of like other alliance of misfits that's being formed. That was not a
we need a
relationship.
name for that, because I'm calling them the non-Tukus, and that's just not that good.
No, I mean, I think they, I think not to
Misfits.
tell much about next week. Yeah, they do like a cheers to like the underdogs or the misfits or
They
something.
just call them the others. But in the next week preview, like Sue and Caroline are there. But yeah, they said I think they said like outcasts.
Exactly.
That's what Sam
So
called them.
of the Tukus, the only person who we saw have this other relationship was Sue and Andy. So to me, that is a valuable relationship that we're going to see progress forward. But Caroline was not included in any of those conversations. So additionally, even though she does flip to be on the other side, she doesn't seem to be a core part of that. And I don't see her then being able, I mean, maybe she can infiltrate it, but it seems like that misfit group is really starting to form. And I think that there's some wheels to that.
I mean, yes and no. I do agree, the way Genevieve sort of describes the dynamics going into this vote as like, there's 4 Tukus and 5 miscellaneous people that are just kind of like atoms colliding, occasionally working together and then drifting apart. I still think, well, I do agree that that stability is starting to form. I do not think the Jello is completely set whatsoever, considering that you do still have the fact that Andy turned on Sam. You still have the fact that Andy is throwing Genevieve under the bus to Rachel. Like, I still think there are some fractures there that I do not think. Hell, I mean, look at what happened with Teeny and Genevieve in this episode, which I found so invigorating. Like, the first few minutes. I love emotions on Survivor.
I love how you're like, it was so invigorating. The Teeny was so upset.
Honestly,
and
yes.
then Jen was so upset. And everyone was crying.
Yes.
This is the man who points at others' misery.
Feed off pain. Yeah, literally.
No, because I think especially in a season that is all about like the different moving strategic pieces, it's a very marked reminder. And Genevieve, I think, says out loud something that basically every single person who has played feels, which is like, shit, I hurt someone's feelings badly. Like, Survivor is living in your own little world, and from Teeny's perspective, their world just ended. And having to deal with that, and also having to deal with it unintentionally. Like, that's the interesting thing about Genevieve, is that she really thought she could have her cookies and cream cake and eat it too. She thought, like, I'll plan to solve blindside, and none of this will get back onto me, just like the Keyshawn vote. I'll slink into the shadows, and it all completely blew up in her face. That's why it was really interesting, to your point, Shannon, to like steer in a completely different mode, because this was the first time that like she had really been outed the entire game. And so to have her and Teeny really speak to truth a lot of these concepts that a lot of people go out that honestly we as fans should sometimes remember, of like, yeah, these are irrational human beings. Sometimes they're squishy bags of meat that sometimes make bad decisions and feel bad feelings. Like, it really brings me a lot of life and heartens me and reminds me that, yeah, before, during, after their on-island experience, like, they are people at the end of the day.
No, they are numbers. And this is the thing. And can I just say that they know that. These players, the Teenies, the Rachels, the Andys, who I think are in the best spot, and I want to talk about it because I think one of those 3 will win. They know about self-interest. And you say, like, but there's been all of these, like, they're not the Sue being like, weeks of I want to kill Carl. They will get over it. And we see now we are in a group that now that Gabe is out, especially, it's literally just Sue and Caroline. Like, we had like the 3 Lavo pairs, 1 individual from each. The 3 Goddard pairs from the beginning, 1 individual from each. And now just Sue, Caroline, and Kyle. And I think that speaks for itself. And for the self-interested players, the outcasts, I do think that they will know where the going is good, and it's with each other. They're now on a path where if I'm Teeny and Rachel and Andy, I'm thinking we've all kind of had misses in the game. We might want to sit next to each other. We could probably have a good story against each other. We need to take out these big threats, like now Carl, now Genevieve. Maybe we'll take like a Caroline or 2 with us, but we'll have the control in that. We'll cut Sam along the way. Like, it makes so much sense, and they should do it, and they're so benefited to do it. So I do think that they will, because they know to do that. And I don't think that Genevieve is part of the outcast. Like, Sam says the 5, but Genevieve's not. Genevieve's had power. She's a lion. It's these other hyenas, and that's how I see this 9. You had 4 Tukus who refused to be a unit, but you were so close. We'll discuss. Then there was Genevieve, and then there were these 4 others. Sam, who's also been on the bottom, but I think will get cut along the way, but I think did very well in Sam, Teeny, Andy, and Rachel. Did so well. And yeah, that's why it comes back to me that just imagine if Genevieve and the Tukus turn it around and take out Sam or Rachel. We can just decide that, and then have the power Tuku from then on. And now I think the other group have that. Now I think the other 4 can hopefully get it for them an easy consensus on Genevieve, and then have 4 of 7, and then start picking where they want to go. And it'll be someone like Sam in a Carl spot now, who might have to, protect being cut. But yeah, I just think they did so well. Yeah, so I put up the Excel spreadsheet, by the way.
Okay.
Is this interesting to anyone? Because
yeah,
it's
walk
like,
it through, Nate Silver. I want to hear the simulation.
No, not even with Nate Silver at the moment. I feel like not at the moment. But I do feel like if you are it's already going in a really good spot. The question is it like a prisoner's dilemma? Does Genevieve and Tuku go together and now they're like, oh, but are you just trying to get me? Should I not trust that? No, because for Tuku, there is literally no downside. Like for Tuku, if they vote for Sam and they're like, we're going to do this, and then Genevieve does actually vote, like turns against him and votes for Gabe, but then if the other side vote for Gabe, like, I'm not explaining this well. There are 8 simulations. I'm running it back. Okay? Yeah. There are 8 possibilities of where everyone could vote, assuming that each of the 3 sides, Genevieve, Tuku, and the non-Tukus, could vote for one of the other 2 sides, because there's 3 sides. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it's 4, 4, and 1 is basically what you're alleging.
Yeah, there's 3 sides, a 4, 4, and a 1. So in the 8 possibilities, 2 of the times Gabe's going to go anyway. So it's like, it doesn't matter which way you go. Like if you're Gabe as an example, you can vote for Sam or for Genevieve. If all the other side vote for you, you're going out 5-4, regardless, right? That Genevieve has the same. It could be 8-1 twice. In 2 of the ways, if they just vote together for Sam, Sam will go. And that's better. Like, survival is important. And also, I think Sam going is better for the Tukus than Genevieve going. Because if Genevieve goes anyway, they go back to a 4-4 next week. This way, they go back to a 4-3-1, vote out Genevieve, hopefully go through to a 4-3. So that's even better. And then on the ones where maybe, is this making sense?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, great. The way you're looking at me, like maybe it's not. on the ones
you
where
can hear the ellipses at the end of Liana's response.
It's the same way that Sam responded to Jeff when he's like, Gabe convinced you, and Sam's like, sure.
I love that moment.
It felt. But anyway,
like, whatever. Jeff, you got me where you want me. I'm giving away my
Jeff.
dice.
I don't care. Shut up.
On the last 2, where it could be like, so say you are Tuku, and you're like, we're going to vote for Sam, and now what's happened is, actually the other side has voted for Genevieve, and she's betrayed you and voted for Gabe, and you're like, no, we could have just been an 8-1 on Genevieve. Actually, then it's just a Sam Genevieve 4-4, and you actually have the power at the revote between a Sam and Genevieve 4-4. So there's no downside to that. So if you're Genevieve, you're like, wow, this really behooves them. They're probably going to do it. There's no downside to get out a better target and definitely survive. And if you're Genevieve, the one tiny little, I think this is making sense now. If you're Genevieve, the one tiny little risk is that I'm going to vote for Sam. I'm going to go all in on voting for Sam. But they've actually voted with you. The non-Tukus have voted for Gabe, and now you've given up your 5-4, and the other side have betrayed you and voted for Genevieve. Now it's a 4-4-1, where it's Gabe and Genevieve, and you've just voted for Sam. So maybe the other side who just voted for Gabe are like, screw you. And they vote for Genevieve, and she's given up her 5-4. That's the one tiny little risk to Genevieve. Other than that, she wanted to play a shot in the dark. Like, she thought she was out. She thought it was like a 50-50 shot. I think this did make sense in the end. 8 versions in the simulation in Excel. There's no downside to Tuku. Just trust the map. There is no downside for them to do it. And Genevieve can trust it. There's no downside for Tuku. No risk at all. So they're going to do it. It gets out a better target. It's so trustable. This did make sense. It made sense. And Finn.
Yeah. I mean, I think I look at it as what's best for each individual player, right? Like, what I think is best for each individual player. Gabe, obviously it makes sense and Genevieve, I think for both of them, because and that's assuming that they can trust each other.
Right. Because we imagine the parents, because that's like the parenthetical of again, that conversation that we were talking about with the hammock. It shouldn't just be Genevieve going, yep. It should be like, listen, we both need each other now. We are considered, we are the names that are being bandied about by far the most besides Kyle out of anybody here. If I'm gone, you're going to be gone next.
But It's not even about being gone next. That's what I think is important. Because I do think Genevieve, either way, like either side of 4, I think should take out Genevieve next and probably will. But it's not about going gone next. It's about one of us will go tonight. We are the 2 options tonight. Like, we are perfectly, exactly in sync in terms of if it could be me or you. A 50-50, we don't have the control. There's basically 4 other swing votes pinning us against each other and then choosing our fate. What if we come together and decide the fate, and then neither of us will definitely go tonight? And for Gabe, yes, you'll be in a 4 with Tuku, and you'll have the 4-3-1, which will be perfect, to the point where last week I would have said, Genevieve, no, definitely don't embolden Tuku to being 4 of 8. But at this point, beggars can't be choosers. Her position is so low that you have
Kiss
like at least it's saving you for tonight. So
Right.
you
I
know
think that's
that
what Mike
you know
meant
that
by
Tuku would wanna do
saying
it because they would want to do that, obviously.
who goes next. I think he meant like tonight.
Yeah,
One
exactly.
of us is going to go
exactly.
next
Yes.
tonight.
Literally,
so
in 20
tonight
minutes.
we need
Yeah.
to save each other.
I mean, what I do
Yeah.
find interesting is, Tuku, as much as Gabe talked about the 4 out of 8, going back to your earlier point about how maybe the outcast, misfits, little rascals, whatever you want to call them, are like coagulating into an endgame group, assuming that the next 2 easy targets are some combination of Genevieve and Kyle. I think those are 2, unless they choose to complicate things some more, I think these are 2 incredibly easy things to serve up, and I think some nice palate cleansers after like this big Gabe blindside that helps shift things in a monumental direction. Then it's 7. Then you only need 4. And so I would imagine maybe from like, especially an Andy perspective, right, who we're seen specifically as making all of these one-on-one connections, I imagine he is trying to formulate what that 4 is, because basically once they get to 7, barring any sort of unforeseen circumstances involving idols or shots in the dark reappearing in the game or what have you, then like you could run the table feasibly to get to the end.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that's why we saw that conversation with Andy and Sue, because obviously Andy is thinking about this, not just the 4, but I mean, who he wants to sit next to in the final 3. And Sue seems to be that person for Andy, which if it's that person for Andy, Sue is probably that person for a lot of people. So that's why to me, Sue, I differentiate from the rest of the Tukus, because I see her almost as like her own entity of people want to bring her to the end because they see her as a goat and they see her as someone who they can beat.
But no one is a goat no one should be a goat this early. And that's the thing. That's why I come for like Caroline and Sue. It's like if they play optimally, there's a path there. And I know the perception of Sue is not great. And I do think the Carl stuff is increasingly terrible. But like for Sue and Caroline, especially like Sue has an idol. I feel like so good about Rachel's chances because I'm like, she has an idol and I bet she uses it in a cool way. Like for Sue, if you just do something better now, control Tuku, get the emotions out of the way to have not hate Kyle because he's poor, maybe. I don't know what's going on there. But then use the idol to make sure you win the war with Gabe later on. That could be a winning move. And I know that the perception will always be tough with that demographic. And I'm not saying that's not true for Sue, but I feel like the move should be there. So yeah, I mean, for Caroline, I think, it's been spoken about. For Kyle as well, the shield with Gabe, like it's there for everyone. And I just feel like this was a big miss for Tuku and Genevieve, unfortunately.
I don't know. I think they know the perception of Sue. I think they figured out who Sue is. I think especially Sue, someone
her
who
age,
had stuck.
her job.
Well, no,
I mean, that's the one thing they haven't figured out.
That's right. Yes. As what was in the word association? I think Saul was 45. That was his word association for her, which is hilarious. But anyway, so look, the way that I think Sue is being perceived, if Andy is willing to have this kind of conversation this early, there is a perception of her. And I think she also came in when we did Mike did all the preseason interviews. Sue was like the top of everybody's list of someone she wanted to work with.
She was the cookies and cream of people.
The cookies and exactly. Mike's favorite flavor of human.
That's going to be my that's what I aim to be.
Cookies and cream.
The cookies and cream of people. Honestly, that's my end all be all in life. I could have all the monetary success I need, all the happiness, but that will be my unfinished business. My ghost will haunt this mortal plane until I am deemed the cookies and cream of people.
So Puyi and I at dinner, we were talking about what's the best compliment you personally could receive. And so now I know what it is for you, Mike. If I ever really want to compliment you, I will say, wow, you really are the cookies and cream of people.
I could cry.
I know. I love you, man. Anyway, was it about Sue? Yes. So sorry, Shannon, but
she was the cookies and cream of people.
I just don't think that there's a way for Sue to salvage. I mean, she would really have
Oh no, I agree with you. I'm just saying, I'm just saying theoretically at the final 9, no one should be an all-out goat at this point. I mean, Marianne was seen as a goat at this point, but Marianne had a different approach to Sue. If my biggest issue with Sue is the way she is approaching the game. If she's in confessional, everyone thinks I hate Kyle, but then she's she's a different human being. But I'm just saying theoretically, no one should be a goat this early, and everyone should be able to put the building blocks in place to get to a final 3 where they could possibly sit next to 2 people that they could beat this early on. I do think that will change later, and I don't think that's true for Sue, but I think that that's an indictment to this point, possibly on some stuff that's unfair, demographic style, and possibly on some stuff of the way that she is approaching it. So I think that's tough. And for someone like Kyle, then should you say, well, he should flip on Tuku because Tuku have been coming for him. We don't endorse it. It doesn't make sense as much to us that Tuku won't just try and really just like take this down to 4 of 8. But they are coming for him, so should he turn? But I do think for Kyle, firstly, again, it's mostly just on shields for me. You know, so for Kyle, if he can get through with a little bit of Tuku's ability, if they were doing better, or even just having Gabe as a shield, take out like a Rachel now would be best for Kyle. And we can talk about Sam and Rachel as a target, but take out a Rachel and then know that Sam might become a target, Gabe might be a target, Genevieve might be a target, just to get you a little later to try and win out closer to the end is best case scenario for Kyle to me, especially because I think he was misreading it. And what Gabe says in the exits is he's like, well, Gabe will come for me. And Gabe was doing it more as like a means to an end because Kyle was that option. I think Gabe more than anyone probably wanted to work with Kyle. So keeping Gabe, even if it's not a Tuku thing, but just as a pure shield and a possible ally, is I definitely think what he should have done. And yeah, using that up when he was vulnerable. I mean, when he was immune and not vulnerable, and like the shield potential of Gabe, like he wasn't a shield here because Kyle was immune. So that was a really big miss. So
yeah, I mean, that's the thing about Kyle is that it's so interesting because I feel like we haven't really gotten this in a while in Survivor of if I'm Kyle, I basically have to make every move with the impetus of like, okay, if I don't win immunity, what's going to help me not get voted out? Because now I think, honestly, and maybe there are other relationships that we won't see or the worm will turn or whatever, but I think from my perspective, every other window has shut. You've won 4 individual immunity challenges. You have
we'll talk about who won what, but yes, you won.
You have worn the most amount of immunity necklaces out of anybody in the new era.
We'll talk about who wore what necklaces for what reason.
Okay, sounds like
what? Should we talk about it?
The asterisks of the split tribal council.
There's so many. I can't because people are arguing with me about this. You can't put him in the record books with the other 5-time immunity winners. He was beaten by 2 people at the very least. At the very least,
sure.
Tini and Genevieve, who have no stats on their record, literally beat him. And like, well, it's a different game. I'm like, he actually was competing directly against him for a reward, which he lost. Like that one is like an actual loss for me. Like the other ones are just kind of funny. Like, yes, Murgatory, he was only against half the tribe, but I guess he had earned that by winning the group challenge. It still is half the tribe. And people are like, well, you know, you play fewer people when you get to the end game. It's like, yeah, but then you've survive through rounds to get to the end game to earn that right to only competing against fewer people. And then obviously it was a co-win with Sue. Sue might have outlasted him. We don't know to this point, but okay, fine. A lot of people get co-wins, but those are just kind of funny that there's an asterisk. But one of them, he did lose to 2 people, and people will say, well, that was the game. Yeah, that's what I'm criticizing. I'm criticizing it because it's dumb. Edge of Extinction, he just won. Yeah, that's what I criticize. It's stupid.
Yeah, but
anyway.
Yeah, okay, but it doesn't. We're talking about it in the context of perception, right?
Yeah,
so
he should be spending his whole time. He should be like, I didn't win. He should say that all day, every day.
He'd be like, actually, no, Jeff. If you want to just rescind that record,
he should. He should be like, he should laugh it off. He should be like, isn't it funny that I literally lost to 2 people and I'm getting this record? I would be doing that because it's also true. Let alone the threat level, and he didn't win.
Okay, if he had like 1 other individual immunity, like, and it was like, oh, Kyle's won 2 individual immunities, then it could be like, well, 1 technically, but he's got like I don't know, he's got a bunch. He's
all
got
have asterisks except this one.
Well, I know, but then Gabe's also has an asterisk because it's like, well, you competed in groups and then blah blah blah.
No, he beat
competed against 3 people.
Yeah, exactly. Only beat 3 people. And
I guess that is true.
Thing. And according to the casuals, he took his foot off of the thing, so technically should have been disqualified, despite the fact that is not in the rules, but. You know, it's a matter of perception.
Maybe the issue is that every single challenge of the entire merge has an asterisk because that's New Era challenges, and that's the conversation that we should have, though. But that's
why I say winningest person in the New Era. Like, I don't necessarily, I don't know if he goes up against Colby Donaldson or Brad Culpepper. It's just like, but all that being said, I think it just becomes the easiest thing. Like, yes, he was able to get by last week because of the protection of the Tukus, Gabe being a large example of that, and the fact that Genevieve wanted to pull this big thing on Saul. But I just think it's so freaking easy to be like, okay, who should we get rid of? I don't know, the guy that has won 80% of the challenges this season. Like, he has either from a tribe setting, a group setting, or an individual setting, he has lost 3 challenges this entire season in 10 episodes. Like, I know that as the game starts getting sticky towards the end, there are more convoluted reasons to take people out. But I feel like, especially with these back-to-back-to-back tribals, sometimes people just want a break in terms of logic. And I just think it becomes so easy to say, well, Kyle's not immune this time. Easy to get rid of him. a way for all of us to get on the same page, and then we reshuffle the deck and move forward the next day. So if I'm Kyle, I have to adapt my gameplay to thinking through, okay, it's no longer like which alliance is working best for me. It's just got to become, okay, in the worst case scenario, if I lose immunity, or let me try to vote people out, and maybe this is one reason why he gets rid of Gabe. Let me get rid of people who could be a threat to get me immunity at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but like, is Gabe even that person? And then let's talk
Gabe
about
beat
it.
him last week.
Well, who beat? No, okay, fair enough. He beat him one time. If anything, like Sue has been like, I think, like really an endurance threat against him. I think that's why when you look at it, Sam or Rachel, I mean, to be fair, if I'm Kyle on the target now, if they do the dream thing we all wish they did, but like if I'm Kyle, yeah, you could take out Sam as an immunity threat, or you take out Rachel, who then leaves in the other threats with you to give you some chance if you don't win, because it's going to be very, very hard to win out, especially because who knows what winning is. Sometimes coming third is winning. So in saying that, maybe, and we kind of see this in other like challenge beast archetypes, like a Chappie's, for example. It's like he was trying to maximize the win in other ways, or maybe maximize the chance of winning, or as you're saying, maximize the chance if you lose. And I do think if you want to maximize the chance of winning, you could still take out like a Sam, and I think that would be fine. But I would, for me, take out maximize your chances if you lose. You take out a Rachel, and then people might be focused on the Sams and the Gabes and the Genevieves. And I do think Gabe and Genevieve were at that point anyway, and then hopefully get you to a point where you can win out a lot further down the line. Now, if I'm Caroline, I'm thinking I want to take out like a Sam, because if you take out Rachel here, then you're going to have to get rid of like all these people kind of blocking up the end game, these like big guys who juries tend to love, the Sam, Gabe, Kyle, Genevieve. You're leaving them all in the game if you take out a Rachel. And I think that one's tough. It's better maybe to depower Rachel here and maybe take out like a Sam. But honestly, both good options across the board. Sam's an easy name. Rachel, I think, has been a target, is a huge threat as well. Both great options for me.
I think the Rachel thing is tough though, because while I do agree that from a demographic perspective, these bigger, younger, more athletic guys are usually perceived as like the big heads. But Rachel has a pretty dang good resume up to this point. I mean, even looking at her story, right? She verbalized it in this episode. I lost my closest ally right before the merge, and I've been searching for a partner, and I was doomed. But because of my own connections, I was able to get Saul to single-handedly save me. And then what did I do? I voted him out the next opportunity that I could. Obviously they don't know this, but she has the idol that she could play as well. I think that, what Caroline espoused about Rachel a couple episodes ago is that, in her opinion, she is on the same level as some of those guys that you were talking about. And, we'll talk about this edit in a little bit. I do wonder if this is the canary in the coal mine for an eventual Rachel win, that it's like, hey, despite her being personified as on the out, she actually is very threatening if she gets in with the right amount of people. And as she vocalizes in this episode, she feels like she finally is starting to get her footing back.
Two other things for Rachel. One, she's really good at puzzles. What did we learn from the pre-merge? That
there
nailed
are no puzzles.
In the later immunity
challenges, they do puzzles. They're not Australian Survivor. There'll be puzzles. That's true.
Yeah, exactly.
They will start getting puzzles. So once they stop doing the stand and hold a thing type challenge, we will start to get puzzles. And I think that that's somewhere that she could excel. She's got puzzle socks, for goodness sakes. And then the other thing about Rachel, the edit of Rachel, it was last week when she got the "I played my shot in the dark" explanation. That moment was like, aha, okay. We as the audience are getting an insight into why she's making certain moves. And Shannon, you brought up Teeny as another one of your possible winner candidates. The reason why I would write Teeny off is because a lot of the confessionals we get from Teeny, I mean, obviously we get a lot of really great stuff in this episode specifically, but before that, it was either Teeny's in the middle of chaos because Lavo is a hot mess pre-merge, or Teeny gets the content that's sort of moving the story forward, but not necessarily about their own personal perspective. So Teeny got a lot of content that was talking about, an all-women's alliance. What does this look like in Survivor? Broad strokes about these idols and advantages and things like that. That's more big picture narrative, not necessarily about them specifically. So that's why for me, Teeny has dropped off of my winner candidate list.
Go ahead, Shannon.
I would have Rachel first, but from an editing game perspective, I want to talk about that. But Rachel, I think, is a very different player. If this fulcrum move goes a different way, this might be the move that opens up the path for Rachel, and I want to talk about that. But if Sam goes here, I think Rachel's path is very, very different. And I think the way that you argue against her is very, very different. That's not just Rachel, who now is a smart player, who has these like cool resume things, like, you know, little underdog moves as I've described them, like the shot in the dark, engaging that, or even like trying to get the rice, like these things that juries will love because they're cool and novel. And now she has a pathway. She could use her idol well. Now I see it for Rachel. Other than having the idol, if Sam goes here and I'm Caroline sitting next to Rachel, I'm thinking out of the Sierra vote, you know, out of the Annika vote, out of the Sam vote. This is someone who was so depowered. So there were the cool little things, but I had the control. So keeping a depowered Rachel for me is okay. And, you know, the puzzle aspect is its own concern as well. So I do think, like, again, Sam and Rachel are both big threats in their own right, but depowering either one of them to sit next to them at the end and just be like, they were an underdog, but they were an underdog because I kept them there. And we might like underdogs, but like they had no power and control. So if they get to the end with me, that's something I can argue against. So yeah, taking out either one of them for their respective threat level. If I'm Kyle and Caroline, who are making this decision in their best interests as like really, you know, wanting to kind of shore up their end game. Genevieve and Gabe, and even Sue for Gabe, are just trying to survive. But if I'm Caroline and Kyle thinking, how does it look for my end game? I'm taking out a big threat in Sam or Rachel, and I'm depowering the other one and sitting next to them and being like, they're a different person than they could have been, you know, now that it has gone well for them.
I am really intrigued by the way they personified Sam in this episode, where he is the one that seems to be most vocally pushing the Gabe vote. It starts on the reward, and we can talk about how much Kyle was just kind of like smiling and nodding along, but he clearly pushes it at camp as well. But what's so interesting to me is, at least from my perspective, we got stuff from like both Andy and Rachel being, to me, coming across as like, okay, this will only happen if they turn their keys. And we got so much from like Sam being on the bottom, and this is finally his opportunity to claw back. But at the same time, I mean, Andy talks about it, right? How the power dynamic has flipped. So much so that Sam feels like the Andy being like, haha, I'm going to make my big move. And Andy's like, that's nice, buddy. I'm going to let you do this when I'm the one that is the one to make it happen.
He also got to try Keely for the first time.
I know. Slowly the shopping list is being checked off.
Not as big of a fan as
fruit. It's a very long storyline of like needing to see Sam try all these fruits. But I really credit Sam the most. And like, I don't put him as much as a winner contender, because I do think at a point you just do come for Sam. Like, and Sam's like, I'm going to turn on them eventually. I think he has less power to do that. Like, I think that they will come to him and cut him at like a 6 or a 7. He's, again, in the kind of mirror images of each 4. That's kind of like the Carl spot for me that he is in, and the other people will have the power to take him out. But Sam was so on the bottom that he's the one being like, I need my shot in the dark. He's been left out of basically 2 votes in a row. Pretty much was until the very, very last minute last week as well. And he really does make this happen. And I have to give him a lot of credit in like bringing the group together. And again, it worked for all of them. So they're going to do it. Like, it's easy to make up with Teenie when Teenie also was self-interested enough to know I should do that. And again, I credit all 4 of them, but I think Sam was the instigator of a lot of it. Rachel's an interesting one for me because she wants Genevieve.
Right.
And I don't agree with her. Again, I think that they've done very, very well here to kind of, you know, not be a 4-4 against possible 2 if they're going to do that.
I also find it interesting that
like
Rachel's
4-4-1.
like, Genevieve's the only one that's on to me, when Caroline was the one that was like speaking to the nines about how threatening.
But Genevieve has been as well, because this is the thing as well. Like, you know, and they talked about this in Know-It-Alls, that Andy, we kind of get the narrative of Andy being like to Rachel, Genevieve's on to you, and her being like, well, now I need to get Genevieve. But we know that is true and valid, and Genevieve is a big threat. So for Rachel, I don't think she's being manipulated. I think it's a valid target. I'm not super harsh on it because, again, it's only a worse target if all of Tuku stay together at an 8. And you take out Genevieve here, which is incredibly unlikely. I still think that they did the right thing by going for Gabe, and I think it's fine. She didn't get her way. They all did what was in their best interest. It's all fine. But for Rachel, what I really credit more than any of kind of that decision is just that she's very well insulated. She kind of hashes it out with Sam in a way that they reconnect. She's a good connector with Andy and with Sam. So I think she's in such a great spot. And yeah, I think on edit and game and potential and the idol and the fact that she can use it, like, I really have her now at like the top of my win potential.
Yeah, so I'm going to go back to Liana's statement about Teenie, because like I could see it, and I still think that, especially from like a where does the rest of the season go perspective, I could absolutely see Rachel be able to carve a path, especially if she does get out people like Genevieve and Caroline, who are more quote unquote onto her before it's too late. I still think there's a chance that Teenie takes this, though, because I'm also looking at the jury, and we had Sierra, who has said that she really wanted to work with Teeny in her endgame. Sol, obviously, thick as thieves with Teeny. Gabe, this week I asked him, who were some non-Tukus you want to take to the end? He says, Teeny. I think that there is a way where, and especially if we get to a typical new era scenario where Genevieve, Kyle, Sam, Rachel get taken out, that Teeny can be looked at as somebody who, yeah, might not have been able to accumulate a lot of power in like firsthand getting rid of people. But at the same time, we see this time and time again in the Survivor jury vote. Sometimes it just comes down to who you like more and who you want to represent the season. And gosh darn it, Teeny has overcome so much, and I always wanted to work with them. And Teeny never had the opportunity to burn anybody because they have sort of been on the bottom of that and might be able to benefit from that as well. So I think especially in a new era season, I would not necessarily count Teeny out. I would probably put her in second place. Andy is obviously a very interesting one to talk about as well, because I could see this big, he's all that, Phoenix rising from the ashes edit being either this guy makes the recovery of a century and is our winner, or this is why he becomes the final boss that gets taken out of Final Four because everyone realizes how many fingers he's had his pots in.
Really? That's that's a lot. I think there's a very big chance, and this is my concern with Andy. I do think there's a very big chance that he's just the Jake losing finalist. Like, to have him as a winner or necessarily like such a big threat, Fallen Angel. Now, who's telling us about that? Who's telling us he's that big a threat that those are the options? Andy. And we do get a bit from Rachel, to be fair. Rachel's in with Andy. But my concern, and I have to address it because I'm very high on what Andy's done every week, and I do think that he has played optimally, but I do worry that he's such a non-threat from the beginning, or even just in his general perception, just consistently, that he can't win. And that's quite an easy way to play because everyone wants to work with him, because everyone can sit next to him and possibly beat him. And no one's telling us that that's not true. And my concern is when we get all of these montages. I mean, Andy has to be the most montage player possibly in Survivor history. And every week that's all of his content, and he is a great narrator. But my concern is when he's doing so much, he's going to Sue and he's going to Kyle, and he's even furthering that divide if possible. I don't even know. But even so, playing people against each other, and he's working with everyone. And other than Rachel, we only hear Andy talk about it. I need Sue to tell me, yes, I'm so in with Andy. I mean, she hates Kyle. But that's easy. I need someone to say, yes, I want to work with Andy. Or, yeah, Andy's really becoming a threat. Someone else has to tell me, other than Andy, how changed the perception is. And no one has. And I have to address that because I do think that it's possible he's going towards like this very compelling losing finalist narrative. And all of the stuff about the webs and all the analogies is just Andy's ironic spin on it.
If that's the case, I think Andy would make Xander look like Troy Zand, because that to me is less Jake, and that's more Xander, right? That was like oh my God, we're seeing this guy doing so much, so why does he end up with 0 votes in the end? That would be the path that I would see.
Yeah, you're right. I also think that, not for nothing, his initial impression was really big for the audience, okay? And if you're out there on the island, I'm sure it comes across similarly. Like, the casuals still don't like Andy because of the first week of the season. So
those are just the John Lovett fans chirping in your mentions.
I know, exactly. So that stuff sticks with you. And not for nothing, we're being told a certain story, but also what's the narrative out there on the island? So I think that obviously has to come into play, because I do hear what you're saying, Mike, and I've definitely had the same thought, but I ultimately have to kind of go back to what I'm hearing from the people on the island. And as Shannon mentioned, I'm not really hearing like, oh, Andy's the big threat. Like, I'm really sort of looking for who are the people that are sort of the middle threats. So not the Genevieves, not the Kyles, the people who are going to be taken out in the next sort of series of votes. We are looking at, in my opinion, the Sams, the Rachels. Those are sort of the two people that I'm thinking of potentially. And I think Sam, to go back to him from earlier, he's the one who gets credit for wanting to assemble this army of outcasts. Like, he's the one who gets the confessional talking about it. And then, of course, with the pushing of the votes. And also, I think he could do well in immunities once Kyle is gone, and potentially Sue, because he's done consistently well. I mean, he came in third in this one. He's coming like second and third in some of the others.
So that
now we gave him rice. Look out!
Exactly. So yeah, I think there could be an argument there for Sam as well.
Well, I think
Sam just gets cut for me. Like, I think he did very, very well to better his position, but it still is a tougher game just based on the fact that I think that he's someone who gets cut along the way, but he's absolutely maximized his position. But I mean, on edit, I still put Andy third because it's on win potential. I have it as Rachel, then Teeny, then Andy, because it's so OTT with Andy, but it's all from him. And then for Teeny, I get a lot from people saying, well, Teeny's always shown to be out of the loop. No, Teeny's edit is great. I mean, it is, as you said, Liana, it's quite personal compared to possibly like more strategic. But the thing is, that's Teeny's story to this point. Teeny has been out of the loop.
Yeah.
Like that's what happened. They can't make up what happened. I mean, Australian Survivor once did literally hide the vote from us because it was such a hatchet job on what had actually happened that they couldn't actually show us who had voted for who. And I think about that sometimes. But Teeny has not been in the votes. This is the story, but it is the Phoenix rising, the Phoenix rising from the ashes, and that's the story. So I do think that this is the best they can do with it, and you're invested, you care about Teeny. It's a good story. It's sympathetic. It has purpose, like a new purpose, new phase. That's what they got this episode as well. So the edit is there. The game hasn't been there, but we've seen the potential in the story. But yeah, and then in terms of Andy as well, I wanted to say it's not just what he did at the very beginning. It's consistent, and we do hear about that a lot. Sierra, the mayor, of Ponderosa, doesn't just think Andy had a meltdown on the first date. She's always been very critical of the way Andy is. We know that Andy, the way people see him, if anything, the consistent things we got, and even in exit interviews and in confessionals from people, even beyond the first episode, has been pretty negative of the way that Andy comes across, kind of like doddering everywhere.
They're all just prudes because he happens to do some, very lascivious things during challenges.
Yeah. So
he bites balls.
That's the perception that we've heard. That's not from Andy.
I'm thinking of Sierra's boot episode. Like, think about the way Sierra talked about Andy. And even Sam was like, Andy, last as always. Like, that's what we're hearing of the perception as early as a couple days ago. I mean, in game time. I
do think from Teeny's perspective, yes, the content has been emotional. But as they talk about in this very episode, like, that is their story. It's this idea that the game has not gone the way that they expected in multiple ways, whether it's divorcing their emotions from their gameplay or obviously the fact that they've lost a couple of close allies. And now the barrier between Teeny, the player, and Teeny, the person, has shattered. And again, what I thought was an absolutely other beautiful sequence. I'm glad that Survivor gave the time, obviously, for representation as well, for like Teeny to speak to where they were in their journey with their gender. But I think it shows to me that like Teeny can't help but play as themselves. And so while positionally that's not optimal, it is, what do we know about Rachel as a person? And I think that Teeny is sort of like the opposite of that spectrum, where Teeny's like not a lot of game, but a lot of personal content. Rachel is pretty much the exact opposite.
Maybe Teeny wins fire, and that's why we saw Teeny's bag get lit on fire, because when Teeny was like, this is my, rising from the ashes or whatever, like rebirth, maybe fire is important somehow in Teeny's narrative. There's some fire-making thing here.
And Jeff did clarify on Fire that they are not replacing Teeny's bag. That is what they are having for the rest of the game, which is
funny.
Bananas to me.
Great.
Like,
I love it.
But couldn't they give, if you have to earn everything, couldn't Teeny get like an extra challenge or something? Could they give up their portion of rice for a new bag from art department, Jeff?
Well, I can just negotiate everything, right? That's how we've opened up. Everything's a negotiation, which would be interesting. It would take up a lot of runtime of like, okay, I just want to, what can I give for this? I mean, I think, I still have Teeny really high up. I will say that a lot of people like Teeny's getting a Kenzie edit. So obvious. But then I hear Rachel's getting a Kenzie edit. I'm like, if everyone's getting a Kenzie edit, no one's getting a Kenzie edit. Kenzie last
There's only one mermaid dragon.
Well, and it was obvious. Like Kenzie last season was, to me, so obvious compared to anyone else as a close second. Whereas here, like, I'm not like so much like Rachel's going to win. I'm starting to get a little bit cocky in the draft, but I think that there's potential. I think Teeny, Andy, then I might say like a tie between like Caroline and Sam. This is all on game and edit combined. Sam, I think will get taken out at a point, but is in as good as a position as he can be. And I do think has the edit. Caroline on position, I'm a little lower on. And in the edit, I'm a little bit lower on, but like could have possibly the skills. I'm concerned about perception. I might drop it to 5 now. And then I think, Carl, nothing. Sue, definitely not. Genevieve maybe a 6, but Genevieve on edit. And I think Genevieve's out next. That's kind of how I would order it. So there's still options. It's not Kenzie, but those are the 3. And can I ask you, because, I listened to your discussion with Pritium about Genevieve's move last week. I was quite high on the move. The recovery, I wouldn't say it went well. Genevieve's still in the game, but Liana, I know that you kind of endorsed it as well last week, didn't leave me alone in kind of defending it. How do you feel like this went for Genevieve? Did it change your views on the move last week?
Well, I mean, again, the thing is that my assumption was that there are relationships that we are not seeing. So that was my assumption, was that we are making this, oh, of course, all the Lavos are together. Of course, they're all so close. But in reality, we don't have an idea of what those relationships look like. What I think I learned from this week is that, one, if Genevieve does have relationships with the group of misfits, they don't matter for anything. Or two, she never had those relationships to begin with. And even to her own explanation, I don't want to build relationships with people because I want to be able to cut them. So now I'm like, well, then why did you do this?
Yeah, I think for me, we talked about this last week, right? It was more of an assumption of, okay, so you're doing this because you surely have a concrete plan set up for what happens next. And it seems like maybe the weight of pettiness versus strategy ended up being a bit more imbalanced than maybe we thought. Maybe she had an idea and it just kind of went up in flames like Teeny's bag once she saw that Teeny had quite the adverse reaction, and the fact that now Genevieve was kind of outed partially by Andy as like the one specific architect behind the move. But it did make me feel like, okay, wait, so what were you planning to do after this if that was the case?
The thing is look, she didn't go. Okay, Gabe did go.
She went very close to going.
I know, but Sam also technically was really close to going when
Sierra... And that's bad, and we should criticize his position on that. Like, that's, that's that.
But she was quite another day, so at least she did survive. But yeah, it doesn't look great. Doesn't look good for our girl Genevieve here.
Yeah, I mean, my assumption was that she would poke her head out, but to an equal level, or maybe even less than like the Gabes and the Carls. But it seems like she was like as much. Maybe, she had like obviously this like, and she was, adding to it with like how pressing Tuku are, and she was saying Carl's such a big friend. She's trying to add to that. And maybe, and I think that, this has been spoken about, Josh Kettles has said as well, that knowing that you do it, knowing that they're getting to 9 where you have to really take out a Tuku for the others and then they do it optimally, that makes sense from like a timing perspective, and that probably adds to the move. But the thing is, that's just the one vote. And then from a timing perspective, they should really take out Genevieve.
Yeah, it's like, now what?
The threat level was more than I anticipated it being, and her recovery from a relationship standpoint wasn't where I needed it to be, where I was like, she's been that special that even when things have gone at their worst, she tells Rachel tells Sam blows it up, they come back to her. She invests in Rome and blows up her whole group, takes out Keyshawn to keep Rome. Rome becomes untenable, immediately has to lose him. She's still pulling the strings now. I was like, at its worst, she'll still be okay, but that's not what happened. The recovery, I said last week, her whole game is a multi-part move. It's about making the move, being able to recover from a relationship standpoint, and maybe she underestimated or overestimated those relationships, underestimated how self-interested the players would be, who would not just be like, the Andys being like, yeah, sure. Or Teeny maybe even coming back. I feel like she thought that was out. But the relationships weren't where they needed to be, because you can't be Kim Spradlin in the new era, and she's not Kim Spradlin here. I unfortunately to say, she has not been Kim Spradlin. So at that point, it was probably a little bit too, it was too audacious. And even on the island, they were agreeing. They were like, it was too early. I'm like, we decide what was too early, but yes. It was too early. I agree, but we decide what's too early.
Listen, Kim Spradlin would never be able to mug to the cameras as delightfully as Genevieve did. So I don't want her to be Kim Spradlin. I want her to be the messy queen that she is. I do, before we move into our typical B&B fare, we gotta talk about the shot in the dark exchange. This is pretty wild. I mean, think about the fact that in the post-merge of Survivor 47, like, we brought back the auction. Any of the newfangled advantages, including the amulets, were like immediately expended. They had no effect on the game. And now, this thing that was introduced from the first episode of the new era that guarantees everyone pretty much a 1/6 chance of immunity is now gone from the final 8 onwards. Survivor 47, from a structure perspective, might be like the most old school season because all the stuff they keep removing from it. Liana, talk about how, to Shannon's point, they ended up making this a negotiation all over again by coming out of left field with this on the table.
Well, to me, it's about the cast rejecting these things.
Yes,
like
thank
that.
You. Thank you. That's
the best part. I love when Jeff is so upset because in Jeff's mind, he places a certain level of value on the shot in the dark, whereas the cast looks at the shot in the dark and says, know. Like, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, you
Like
really
Rachel literally used it as, is this anything?
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, we're willing to get rid of this. Like, we don't want this. Like, we don't see this as valuable. And for me, it's Jeff's just pure shock that, both with the amulets, with the shot in the dark, with everything about like, but why? Clutching his pearls. Like, this is not the most valuable thing that he's given them.
Yeah, I do think that Jeff has gotten hosed a lot this season. The eggs, I said as well, he got hosed. I think here technically he got hosed, but I will say, to me, it kind of amounts to a win for everyone. But yeah, for the players, I mean, I spoke about this a bit on Twitter, but everyone giving up their shot in the dark isn't bad for anyone because, firstly, you're giving it up, but so are 7 other opponents. I mean, for Rachel, 8 opponents, and she obviously a huge win.
Which is interesting because, Jeff's original negotiation, right, is like, well, half of you have to sit out. And so that becomes the big battle of like, well, some of us are being disadvantaged while other of us have the advantage of competing for immunity. That's all completely wiped clean at this point. Everyone except for Rachel's on equal footing.
Yeah, like, I mean, if it were going to be like, okay, 4 of you sit out, so someone's going to win immunity and have even a better chance of winning immunity, and then they'd have an asterisk, right? Because if not everyone would be playing. Well, the new era really screws with immunity challenges. But yeah, if it was going to be that, or there's just no immunity challenge and no one will win, you'd still prefer the second. It's better for everyone to lose something anyway that even, it sounds like, well, you're all giving up, so it's more. It's actually for everyone a more even thing. And especially with the shot in the dark, because the shot in the dark, more than anything, the reason if half of them had to give it up, you'd be like, well, if it's me versus them, they might go for me because I have less protection. I'm a more vulnerable target. It would kind of upset the balance of the tribe. But for everyone losing it, they're all on the same footing. It just is the old era. And even like if you're not on the bottom, then okay, great. Now we have to like blindside less possibly, or we don't have to split as much. Like it's easier. Even Gabe speaks to that ironically before going. But even if you're on the bottom, it's hit one time, it's a 1 in 6 chance, and you have to give up your vote. It's just like such an easy thing to give. So for the tribe, it makes so much sense. But even for Jeff, while I do think like, okay, you just lost your own advantage, and like they gained so much. He said on the On Fire podcast, and I was reading this in Entertainment Weekly, that like it was a moment and he probably like won't do it again. So I think production also kind of do win out because they get something for us to talk about. It was an interesting moment and it was like a unique thing that had happened. So from a production standpoint, that probably will create more entertainment. Even just getting the confessionals of people being like, I wish I had my shot in the dark. The juice was probably worth the squeeze beyond who's going to use it and hit it for the second time ever in the next 2 episodes. Like that probably wouldn't happen anyway. So I think they got the entertainment that they needed and kind of everyone comes out of it fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think for all Jeff was espousing and what was talked about maybe a bit at Tribal Council by Andy about like, oh, well, this means that there will be less blindsides. I don't know. I think the show did pretty well for 40 seasons where you didn't necessarily have this and they were more than happy.
This invented the blindside, Mike. I don't know what you're talking about. This is like the Sandra Bullock of advantages.
Exactly. Well, even look at something Corellian casting its own blindsides. What about like even look at the Rome vote, for instance, where like Saul does not throw a vote on to Andy because of shot in the dark. It was because he thought he had an idol. And what's interesting is talking with all of these players, the reasons why they're not playing the shot in the dark most of the time in the post-merge especially is because they feel like the numbers are super tight. Oh, it's going to be, Saul last week thought, okay, it might be like 6-4. And so if I give away my vote, then that's something that could impact things. And so it feels like people aren't using it anyway, with the exception of what Rachel does outside of people who know they're doomed. And yes, while you do get Caleb's once-in-a-lifetime miracle Hail Mary going off, on the other side of that is the very next season where Mariah plays it and it doesn't hit. And she gets, pretty unanimously, unceremoniously voted out. So, well, I did not have a problem with the shot in the dark. I think it is one of the more salient elements of the new era. I am more than fine to be without it. And I doubt, especially with this cast, it is going to change the behavior of them whatsoever.
I think Gabe literally said your vote is worth more, because that's the thing too with giving up the shot in the dark. It's not like you're giving up an idol that just implicitly has power. You cannot vote if you play your shot in the dark. So you have to then give up something also very valuable to even have the advantage in the first place, if you would even call it an advantage. So yeah, I mean, it was a no-brainer. It totally made sense.
Not to mention as well, you can't play the shot in the dark if you don't have a vote. And considering how much, especially these new era seasons, love to take votes from people, then it's like, well, then it's just like occupying dust in my bag before it ends up being lit aflame. I don't need this.
Yeah, exactly. And also the shot in the dark is less valuable than we even thought with the revote rules changing. That's an important thing as well, because it used to be if you had a one-person majority, say 3-2, and it could have been anyway with Soul last week, say 5-4, then you play a shot in the dark, you're a target, but win on the revote 4-3. But now, not having a vote, the other person would still vote, so it'd be 4-4.
Yeah.
So actually the shot in the dark is even less valuable than we've always thought it, because that's been one of the major loopholes to try and use the shot in the dark in the past. So yeah, there's not a lot here. I will say that I said this on Twitter. Jeff crediting Gabe over and over again. Looks like Gabe convinced you. Sam's like, well, I can't be the one person to make the tribe. Like the amount of social capital I would lose from doing that. A shot in the dark wouldn't even remotely cover. Like it was so fair and valid. He was like,
say yes.
This is not Shireen and Will Sims. Sam does not hate Gabe with all of his guts to be like, no, Gabe, because of you, we will get no rice.
Gabe's arguments weren't even hitting for Sam. He was like, you would need your vote. He's like, no one's been taking my vote. He was like, rice in the challenge. Sam doesn't respond. He's like, well, I can't take rice from everyone else. And Jeff is like, look at Gabe. He has mind control powers.
Yeah, Gabe's like, didn't Gabe literally tell Sam like, well, you're still here. You're doing something right. And it's like,
Sam was like, not even listening to Gabe.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, you could tell. My favorite though was Sam's reaction to Jeff just being like, sure, whatever.
Yeah. And then Jeff doesn't be like, yeah, it seems like that's probably wrong. At Tribal again, he's like, let's talk about Gabe and his freaking mind control powers.
Yeah, like Sam, you were persuaded by Gabe for this to happen. I will say also, though, speaking of perhaps some misappropriated credit here, yes, Kyle was the one to get this over the line. But for an episode that wasn't really high on Caroline, this was far and away the best thing she did in this episode. For those that don't remember, the whole exchange, because we'll talk about it a bit later, was that Jeff suggested 4. Gabe, despite this being an immutable number, does suggest 3, and Jeff says no dice. And Caroline
it's meant to be a negotiation, to be fair.
Caroline says dice. How about if 2 of us give our shot in the dark? Which I don't know. Would she convince Sue? Does that show their relationship that she'd be like, okay, Sue, we're both sitting out this challenge together? And then Kyle's like, this is ridiculous, but I'll just say it. We're all thinking it. What if we all give away our shot in the dark? And Jeff's like, oh, what? So Caroline is the one that, much like she did in many votes before this one, really get the ball rolling. Yeah.
Which to me is so funny, because the offer of 2 shots in the dark versus all the shots in the dark, which one is more interesting? It's so much more interesting for them to have to decide who's going to have to give up their shot in the dark. So Jeff should have said, I'll negotiate with you 5 shots in the dark, and then 100%. They have to decide, because that's 100%. So much better.
The shots in the dark could have become the new fire tokens. It could have become a currency that you
and it would have been, because then it becomes Gabe or Genevieve. Oh well, Gabe has a shot in the dark he might play, so Genevieve's now a more open target. Then it upsets the balance of the tribe. It would have been funny though that they're like, we all want to give it to you. He's like, no, some of you have to keep it.
Yes,
but actually from a TV moment, it would have made more sense, and it would have made better TV, because then it would have been, oh, you actually are going because you don't have your shot in the dark, because it makes you a target, not just that you can't play. There's like 1 in 6 Hail Mary chance. Like now it's actually made you vulnerable, and we have to choose who does it. That's interesting. Everyone doing it is way even. The interesting thing was obviously Rachel finally getting her free rice, but but the rest of it, that would have been so funny if they're like, all of us. He's like, no, some of you have to keep it so that some of you are disadvantaged more than others, because if everyone does it, it's like no one doing it. It's like if everyone has the Kenzie edit. So if he was like, okay, no, 3 of you have to keep it. You choose who and they're like, I guess I'll keep my freaking shot in the dark. Like,
it's like eating your vegetables. Like, we have to do this. I mean, it's so interesting because so I went to the first tribal council of Survivor 46, and Jelinski joked while they were there, like, shouldn't we all play our shots in the dark? Wouldn't that be funny? And for some reason, the one ridiculous thing to not happen in Survivor 46 happened in Survivor 47, where essentially everyone played their shots in the dark by giving them away.
Yeah.
What would happen if everybody played their shot in the dark? Like at Tribal? Like if a whole tribe, everyone played their shot in the dark. There's 0 votes cast. What happens?
They didn't plan for this, did they? They should have a plan for everything.
What a prisoner's dilemma.
I think
that would be crazy.
I
think it's multi-person fire challenge.
Yeah, I think it's Jeff going for the best TV moment in the moment of maybe he restores their votes.
Wait, he restores their votes? No, that's
he's like, all right, now you all vote
making
again.
them make fire.
Okay, wait. Or the people who hit the luck correctly, so theoretically 1 in 6, they're the ones who get to vote then? For the non-safe,
interesting.
They're safe and everyone else makes fire.
But what if nobody hits? Because I do believe that once you draw the scroll, then a new scroll is replaced back in the bag.
Right.
Well, it depends. If it was like a 5-person tribal council, then there's usually 6 scrolls, so you could not get the one safe scroll. It'd be so stupid. It would be so dumb. But yeah, I think that there's 2 if there's more than 6, and there's 1 if there's 6 and under. That's what Wikipedia says. But why are we even in this position where we have to talk about this? This is so dumb.
Well, we don't need to anymore. That's the thing. It's done now.
Well, yeah, and thank you to. But I do think that is very, very funny. Between the amulet, between not extending the beware advantages, like they're like, I want to go back in time, okay, and I get to decide.
Which is so interesting because we're coming off of Survivor 46, where I think they would have expected the exact opposite behavior of like, great, I got these idols, I'm gonna play them now. Nobody did last time, but now it's like, no, this thing is really weighing.
It actually tracks though. It tracks from the preseason interviews, Mike, where I felt like they were all like very low on journeys and on all of that.
Rachel's hot take was that new era advantages actually are a disadvantage. Andy said that the hidden immunity idol is the most overrated thing in Survivor history. Keyshawn never wanted to go on a journey. Yeah, it seems like we have very brave players in certain areas of the game, but not in other areas. And those who were brave in certain areas, like your Gabes, like your Romes, were so out front about everything that they had to use it up, basically, because they're like, well, shit, I'm not being very secretive about this thing that I have.
Yeah, wow, that was crazy. They just all gave up their shot in the dark, and Jeff's like, wow, I love it. Oh my god. But yeah, it was interesting from Caroline to come up with the idea to like, we have these things we don't care about. They all had their shot in the dark there. I mean, you should always keep your stuff, as we've seen, if you get sent to another beach. Yeah, exactly. But they were all just like, we haven't actually here ready to go. We can't wait to give this to you.
Now, here's the thing. We saw Andy lose his shot in the dark, like misplace it. As we know, people bring their bags to challenges. If Teeny had all of their stuff with them and they got up to leave, head back to camp, we'll see you tonight at Tribal, and the shot in the dark falls out on the challenge site, would they get a new one? Or is that thing permanently lost?
They wouldn't. I don't think.
I don't think so.
They're not getting a new bag. They're certainly not getting a new shot in the dark.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Because petty inconvenience is a very big part of the new era.
Yep.
Yeah,
dangerous fun.
Exactly it. Exactly.
And petty inconvenience.
Yeah, petty inconvenience. That's the tagline.
Dangerous fun. The equivalent of not being able to find your keys. Dangerous fun in a nutshell.
Literally, that is the new era. So it's like they would have been like, wow, Teeny lost. They shot in the dark in the challenge. Now they can't get it back.
No, you could do this. This is the casting brief. Like, Jeff walks over like, well, listen, you don't want to lose out on a good time playing Survivor. Like, Teeny lost their shot in the dark, and he holds it up to the camera like, apply to be on Survivor.
Literally that. Yes. Literally that. This is the monster. The monster of irritation. That is it.
Those Jeff promos always make me laugh. My favorite one is the one where he put himself inside the one where they had to compete where Gabe won and they were inside the thing with the, he's like, if you want this, and he's like putting himself inside the little box, or the pinky finger with the peanut butter. Like, those make, oh my gosh, those are so funny to me.
Nothing
in Australia.
Yeah, no. Oh,
but
really?
I see them. Like, if I watch a different way. But in
my opinion, though, nothing can beat post Applebee's meltdown. Well, Survivor's tough.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, you guys should you should do a game on that. You should do a B&B game on the real or fake Jeff promos, because they're so unhinged people won't remember, and you can make them up. That's a really good game.
Oh, I like this.
Right,
I like this. We'll put this
for next year.
Let's start moving into our traditional B&B stuff, and let's talk about the man of the hour and a half here in the form of Gabe. So Gabe talked a lot of about highly of his soon-to-be position in my preseason interview. Quintupled on that when the first thing we hear from him, let alone in the season, is that he wants to be on the new era Mount Rushmore.
Okay, but also when he got voted out, did he say, I'll be back?
Oh,
the Terminator?
Not only that, but he doubled down on it in his final words by being like, yeah, this isn't the last you'll see of me.
Okay, Gabe.
Yeah, he really the shot.
Well, good
after
for him.
He threw it away
he
earlier.
Shot a shot in the dark. Yeah.
Well, so Liana,
that was his one shot that he still had.
How did you think this was going to play into what happened with Gabe on the island? Was this the makings of a future Mount Rushmore player, or someone who would burn out early?
Okay, so yeah, look, I was willing to believe in the Gabe fantasy of it all. I did have Gabe making the finale. So I said that Gabe came into this game, shot out of a cannon, and rode that momentum all the way to
His
the
second
final
shot.
3. Exactly. With his BFF, Tiana. When he wins fire at Final 4, Gabe goes into the final tribal council with all the confidence, which gets shattered when he receives 0 votes due to his flashy antics and emulation of Russell Hantz, which rubbed people the wrong way. Gabe managed to make several enemies, included but not limited to Saul, Rome, Asia, Teeny, and Sue. In an attempt to carefully manage his image on the island, he comes across as a highly calculated and not relatable person. So naturally, the Facebook casuals are not a fan. His ally was Tiana, and his enemies were Teeny and Asia, but also not limited to Saul, Rome, and Sue.
Sounds like the postscript on like a ad for a prescription medication.
I know. Exactly.
Another thing we don't get in Australia. You guys love your medical ads, though.
I mean,
sometimes we need medicine. Sometimes we need medicine to get through daily existence as an American.
It's just a huge part of American television. It's not true here.
It really is.
Yeah.
So I did not have as bright prospects for one Mr. Ortiz. I did have him going pre-jury. So not the complete opposite of Liana's predictions, but we'll get into it. So I said, true to Gabe's interesting analysis of Russell Hantz, he becomes a devout Hantzist once he hits camp. Not only does he find the first idol of the season, he's not being elusive at all about his searching, but he also forms his own motley group of women with Sue, Caroline, and Tiana.
Oh, man.
Despite him doubling down on the lie that he's a barback, the opposition will take note of how eloquent he is and assume he's hiding something. When Gabe scores a critical challenge win for Tuku single-handedly, he'll do a touchdown dance in honor of his problematic fave, Ray Lewis.
No.
Yeah,
no. No, you didn't say that. You didn't write that. I won the date. You didn't say that.
I mean, it's the Google Docs got the backlog here.
Where's the edit history?
Yeah, I need to see the date. I want a screenshot.
This isn't fair.
With Tuku facing the first vote, Gabe plays the idol on Sue, figuring she's an easy vote and wanting to make a big move on TK. Unfortunately, Gabe has no idea that Sue and Tiana
on TK, you did not
have flipped over to the other guys, and he's taken out instead. Despite a pre-merge finish, Gabe insists in his final words in exit press that he'll return. I said I'll be on the Mount Rushmore of the new era, and I need some more time with the chisel for these chiseled good looks. His closest ally was Sue, and his enemy was TK.
Give me the edit history. That's beyond. That's bizarre. That's scary.
Freaky. That's really freaky, Mike.
That genuinely, the pre-merge thing, with the one, they didn't go back to another tribal council after the one you predicted almost completely, other than the fact that you said he played the idol on Sue, which I think actually Gabe in the exits did defend really well, because at the time I was like, he should just play it on Sue. He knows Sue was going. He was like, I want to hide my relationship with Sue. And to be fair, they did that very well. He said that was one of the things he was proudest of in the game. And I do think the fact that TK and even Tiana weeks later comes out not knowing that Sue and Gabe were so close was very impressive. So I think he did that very well. Other than that, you predicted that whole tribal council against TK with the right votes.
Yeah.
Finding the idol, being found, finding the idol, playing the idol. What? And then saying he'll be back when he leaves. I'm
did he?
I have chills.
Did he in the interview tell you? He's like, yeah, I'm planning on doing the Ray Lewis dance.
Sorry, this is where I ended up cutting about 20 minutes out where Gabe's like, all right, this is what I'm going to do from the first day until the last night. I know everybody's names, so I'm going to tell you.
And I'm also know exactly what they'll do. I know exactly who I'm going to tribe with. What?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's freaky. Okay, well, that's an easy decision for you, Shannon, I'm sure. But that's
pretty
weird.
Easy, because it told the future.
So, ooh, maybe that, Mike. That's your fallback plan. You can become a psychic.
I'd be the best psychic ever.
Yeah.
Is this the best ever?
I think that might be the best. I mean, it's funny because obviously he made the placement was wrong, but the actual text of the prediction was freakily accurate, actually terrifying. So
did you have anything about convincing Sam to give up his shot in the dark?
Oh, you know what? Actually, there's a little bit of a smudge here. Yeah,
Oh,
Gabe convinces Sam.
Oh, but he
they're on
didn't
separate
convince him,
tribes,
actually.
to
Sam
give
just
up a
did
shot in the
that.
dark.
So that was
Oh,
actually
wait,
wrong.
there's a little bit of a ink blot here. Oh, PPS, he didn't actually do it, but Jeff will claim that he did in tribal council.
Right, asterisk. Oh, another asterisk. Yeah.
Much like Kyle's challenge.
Much like Kyle's immunity.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's weird. I don't like
That was
That's
crazy.
freaky.
I will
I'm
again
just gonna
caution
stay
that
with me.
this will not be replicable. Okay, people
No.
You've done
like
it. That's it.
48. I'm not gonna be Nostradamus here. I'm gonna miss much more than I hit, much like the legacy of the shot in the dark.
Yeah.
This is the Caleb. Okay, this is the one time when like it really paid off.
But it's fine because you don't need more. Like that's so impressive in its own right. Whatever, Mike is spoiled. You heard it here first.
Yep,
There's no other explanation.
But
You know,
on
no one-
only Gabe specifically, like no one else, just Gabe.
Listen, I seek out very specific alleyways in my spoiling. I go to one
Yeah,
contestant
right.
and I say, "Tell me."
No one would
everything
ever
that happened.
believe that I just went to you. Oh my, well deserved points, Mike, because
Thank
my
you.
God.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, let me cede the spotlight over to the two of you.
Oh.
And look, we've done a lot of talking. We've thrown a lot of odd words around. Let's continue the trend, shall we? We're going to do some Mad Libs here around some choice Jeff Probst moments that happened in this episode. So, got a couple of prompts here that we can go through. As per usual, I'll each give you sort of responses to fill in, and I'll use them to make Jeff's odd phrases even odder. Let's go to our first one here. Liana, give me a number.
Ooh, okay. 3.796.
Okay, down to the, what is that, 1,000th place?
Yes.
Come through
You're welcome.
science. Shannon, give me another number.
16.66666%, but that doesn't matter anymore. But in case it did, that's the shot in the dark odds that Voce once made Jeff go,
Oh,
wow,
man.
about.
Yeah, Voce's rolling in
Wow.
his grave right now of like,
Yeah.
oh my god,
Well,
what's
I
my
think he's
math
still
was for
alive.
nothing.
I know.
I think he's probably watching. He's fine.
He's probably doing surgery.
Mm.
He's busy.
Watching
Liana,
during surgery.
give me a school subject.
Oh, can I say recess?
Of course you can. It's my son's
Okay.
favorite subject right now.
Aw.
Shannon, give me a verb in the past tense.
You mean like with like ending in
Like
ed?
ED,
Yeah.
yeah. Or D.
I can't think of words. Why is this so hard?
It's like Survivor
dance,
45.
dance,
You have to
dance.
end in D. Okay. Danced.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Liana, give me a body part.
Oh, your your toenail, but specifically the middle one.
Middle toenail. What I love, Liana, and I now you're not going to do it because I called it out, is that you seem genuinely surprised every time I go to you.
Well, no, it's not because you're going to me. It's because I'm expecting like a noun or an adjective. And so far I've gotten number, school subject, and body part. So that's
Well,
exciting.
The trend shall continue. Shannon, give me another body part.
Ooh.
Okay. Well, I can't think of words. I'm gonna go with face.
Okay.
I'm
Liana-
looking at my own face. I was like, couch. Like I'm literally just looking around.
That's what I know. I'm like, water bottle.
Liana,
Yeah.
give me a verb.
Oh, okay. A verb. To staple.
Staple. Okay. Shannon, give me an object.
Couch.
Okay.
Microphone.
Liana, give me a noun.
You know those Billy Bass fish, the one that would sing and
Uh-huh.
do that one, that thing.
What a staple. Did that make its way to Australia, Shannon? This was like a hallmark of the 90s.
Yeah.
I was in South Africa in the 90s, and yeah, I guess so. I think I've
It
seen
was
it.
like a singing fish.
Yeah, no, I've seen
like
it.
its
Yeah.
head
Take
would
me
be-
to the river.
Yes.
It's like the
Good.
original wand off. All right.
I just want to point out that earlier in this podcast, Mike was looking at me like I'm crazy. I reserve the right to look at you like you're crazy,
You do that on a daily occurrence.
and I am right now.
All right. Well,
I thought the line of there was a line of logic. Okay, so I thought it's getting into Christmas times, and then I
Mhm.
thought about a singing Santa, and then I thought about other singing things, and then I thought about a singing fish. So there was a thought process. Okay.
all right, Shannon, an adjective.
There's no adjectives in this room, unfortunately.
Describe the
Are the
microphone.
adjectives in the room with us right now?
Exactly. Special.
Special. Okay.
Special.
Liana, give me another adjective.
Yes. Prickly.
Prickly. Shannon, give me an animal.
Cat. Okay, that
Cat?
one's easy.
Okay. Liana, give me a food.
Oh, I was thinking of animals. I will go with, okay, I really want to say cookies and cream, but I don't want to do that because I think that's what it's going to be. And that's what it was. So instead, I will go with burnt popcorn.
Okay. Shannon, give me another food.
There's no food in this room. Oh, tea. Does that work? There's tea. My old tea.
Liana, give me a liquid.
Oh, a liquid. Slime, like the Nickelodeon slime.
There we go. All right, and then Shannon, give me a food.
There's no second food in this room. Pizza.
Okay, and Liana, give me one more food to finish it off.
Oh, okay. One more food. I will go with marshmallow fluff.
Okay, and actually, Shannon, sorry, I lied. There's one more. A verb ending in ing.
Singing.
I was gonna go dancing.
Okay, yeah, you did
I
dancing.
I can't explain all dancing too much.
All right.
This is Footloose, no dancing.
So here is Jeff Probst's narration as he welcomed the Survivor 47 contestants in to the reward challenge.
I'm kind of shocked you went with this. I mean, it makes sense based on what all the categories were, but like I thought we were going like heavy balls.
I go heavy balls every day.
Jeff did say grab your balls, which I appreciate.
You said balls a lot, so I just thought.
You did.
All right, here we go. Final 3.796, which makes me very nervous about what happened to the rest of that fourth person.
I was going to say, who's about to lose a limb?
16.6666 seasons. Let me do some quick recess. Carry the one. That's a lot. That's a lot of seasons of Survivor.
I mean, wait, hold on. 6.66. What are we?
16.666.
16.66. Are we 2/3 of the way through the season? More. Oh, probably more.
No, I'd say we have about a month left, or now we found out we have about
okay, so
5
that's
episodes
pretty
left.
Close. Okay, all right, I like that. Okay, sorry.
That's not really what he was saying, though.
All right, well, let's get to today's reward challenge. For today's challenge, you're going to be randomly danced into 3 teams of 3. Each player will have their middle toenail tied together, their arms tied to their face. You're going to staple through the sand as you move a couch with your head.
That sounds hard. That sounds like they've done before with like the, with the heavy weights, like the snake challenge.
Well, especially when you have your arms tied to your head.
Yeah, that actually would work. That sounds like a good challenge.
Once you're at the finish, each player is responsible for rolling 1 couch onto their singing fish. The first 3 to finish win reward. Want to know what you're playing for?
Yeah.
The winning 3 will be taken to the sanctuary where special things happen.
Aww.
For an afternoon of prickly food.
Ooh.
You'll have wraps, veggie, and cat.
No.
Oh no!
Why did you say animal?
Oh!
Why did you say animal? Why would you do that to me?
No!
That's really not going to work well with the charity I'm going to give at the end of the
Chicken's an animal.
You heard it here first. Shannon's pro-eating cat.
I wasn't going to say chicken. I'm a vegetarian. Why didn't you just say food? Why would you make me say an animal? That's so unfair. This is like when they made Carl eat meat. That's what you just did to me.
You're sitting there like, oh, I could eat these cat wraps. I'm really tempted to.
Yeah, I was so excited to say cat too. I was like, cat! And then you made me eat them.
You'll have wraps, veggie, and
So
cat.
weird.
You'll have burnt popcorn.
Oh.
You'll have tea. You'll have juices. You'll have ice slime. And for dessert, cake.
Juices sounded so weird, but that was actually what he said, right? So
Yeah.
That's why that sounded so odd to me.
You want to know what kind of cake?
Oh, cat?
Pizza and marshmallow fluff.
Could be worse.
Worth singing for?
It is worth singing for.
I want to give my charity now.
Shannon's like, just to cover for the PR of it all.
That was really bad. I don't need the out of context account saying that I approve eating cats. Okay, I think that's already been a pretty big political stuff for you guys, so I'm trying not to go
the
that
eating
direction.
cats in the
Do you think that person who unfortunately has lost 0.204 of themselves they're gonna have an easier or harder time pushing that couch?
Did they lose an arm or a leg, do you think? I don't know. Is it, I guess it's based on
It's like 20% of
volume?
yourself.
Would an
Love
arm
that you
be
assume it's arm or
20%?
leg. I mean, that's like a best case scenario.
Well, I'm sort of assuming that they're allowed to continue to compete. So I feel like any sort of vital organs would
It's
probably...
it's like Missy and San Juan del Sur. Like, it's not advisable, but like you could do it theoretically.
Yeah, they weren't like beheaded.
Right, exactly, yes.
They didn't go the way of like, you know, a third of the 6 queens. Back to 6, by the way.
Yeah. I think it's going to be...
They got beheaded. 2 of them got beheaded. So that would be,
All right. Well, that was certainly a reward worth singing for.
What was the number?
In terms of what? It was
16 3 point,
796.
Yeah. So
this is technically the final immunity challenge. It's just that one person's a little worse for wear.
Or maybe all of them like lost their toes or something. You know, that's a really good point.
You know what? It could have
been.
That's
actually a good point.
Once upon a time, I can't remember who, but they said that they like cut off their finger, if you remember that, to like not be at tribal council. Maybe Jeff actually took them up on that offer.
Well, I know Kathy Sleckman said, and then who said they were going to cut off their finger?
Someone in
it
the
was
new
an
era
analogy.
said they would cut off their finger if it meant they wouldn't be a tribal council.
Right.
It was like early new era. Damn, all of the stuff just exists in my brain, just not being helpful, and I don't even remember who it was.
Well, now while I'm Googling cut off finger in my
don't
notes,
do that. Don't do that.
Survivor cut off finger.
It was an analogy. It was but hopefully they all just lost like a small toe.
Yeah, I think that's probably because it doesn't. I mean, 3 point whatever I said, 7 something, right? That doesn't necessarily imply 3 people, intact people, and then 1 person. It just in summation there are that many players left.
So this is fun. This has been enjoyable to think about. Yeah, if they all lost, like all Van Gogh'd it.
Yeah, they all Van Gogh'd it, and maybe
instead of having to give up their shot in the dark, they just all had to
give up in here. Yeah, that's it. Jeff will take a finger.
First off, that's amazing. Second, I did look up what it was. It was Swathi in the premiere of Survivor 42.
Yeah,
she said, "quote If I could cut off a finger tonight and not go to tribal council, I would." And then she says after day 7 or 8, she would stop cutting off digits.
What else did you get on Google? What did you Google to get that?
I just Googled my notes.
Oh, it was your notes. I thought you Googled it because I was like, okay, that could be horrifying. Okay,
no,
your notes are so well organized. That's amazing that you could find that so quickly. I can't even find my notes.
All in the cloud, baby.
That's incredible. Wow, you are so organized.
Thank you.
I don't have that.
That's right next to the cookies and cream compliment is the highest thing you could ever pay me.
Wait, all of your notes ever are all in the cloud in
since I started covering the show in season 35. Yes,
I pay money for that dossier of notes. $1.
Okay, I'll offer it to you for free.
$1. Okay, thank you. That's not how negotiations work. What are you, Jeff? You give me something.
What if we all offer our Survivor notes?
And then it's all even. None of us have
mine. Mine are saved as like 46-2. Survivor 48 or whatever. Like my notes are it's so bad. It's so bad, and I never improved upon it.
All right, well, let's continue on with the Mad Libs here, and this is going to be a much longer one. So get those brains.
That sounds like a threat.
Shannon, bring many more props into the room.
Shannon, go look for more stuff around your house, quick.
All right, well, Shannon, let's start with something. Let's start with something easy here. Give me a number.
4. Just 4. Actually, no, 6. It's always 6. 6 is the thing.
It's always 6. Liana, give me an object.
An object. Okay. Licorice.
Okay. Yes, because it is not edible. Shannon, give me another number.
I like licorice.
66.
Okay. Liana, give me an adjective.
Crunchy.
Crunchy. Okay. Shannon, give me a verb.
Speak. What am I
Liana,
doing?
Is that what you're telling me to do?
Yeah.
Liana, a TV show.
The Golden Girls.
Oh, nice.
Shannon, I'd be like Survivor. I'm not creative right now. I'm stressing.
All right, well, Shannon, this might allow you to be creative. Give me a preposition.
And a preposition is what now?
A preposition is
Right
a part of speech that implies some sort of direction. Onto,
On,
up,
over,
down, across.
Across.
This is the last thing Mike said.
My brain is broken. It's so concerning. It's so concerning.
Okay.
All right, Liana, a noun.
Can you give me an example?
Sure, a person, place, or thing.
Okay.
Like,
Thing.
great. Thank you. All right, Shannon, give me an accessory.
Ring.
Okay. Liana, give me a number.
The square root of 69.
Okay.
Need something.
There we go. Shannon, give me something you need on Survivor.
You're shot in the dark.
Something else.
Cat toys.
Okay.
Be careful. You know
Well, yeah, if you want to attract them to put in those wraps, yeah, I think you'll need to entice them in some way. All right, Liana, give me a number.
To put them in the wraps. What the frick?
Can I give you a time?
What?
Does that count as a number? Like if I said 11:59 p.m., does that count?
Yeah, you know what? Why not? Sure.
Okay.
That's not okay. Shannon, give me a verb ending in ing.
Podcasting.
Oh, I love that. Liana, give me another verb.
Does it have to end in ing?
Nope.
Slime.
Slime. Okay,
Slime.
listen, we watch Ghostbuster. He slimed me. That's a part of a verb.
Okay. It's stuck in my brain.
Shannon, give me a noun.
Microphone. Is that a noun?
Yes, it is. You're right.
Yeah, okay.
It's a thing.
Liana, give me a name.
Callahan.
Oh, Callahan.
Gee Willikers, Callahan.
It's a joke for only you and I. Well, Shannon, give me a verb ending in ing.
I'm pretty much sitting. Like I'm already said the things I'm doing.
All right, Liana, an adjective.
Like I've already said podcasting.
Yeah.
An adjective. Thawky.
Foggy?
Thawky? Like a keyboard? A thawky keyboard? Thawky.
What?
Thawky.
Like
Thawktua?
Thawky. No! Okay, I changed. What am I supposed to do? An adjective?
An adjective.
An adjective. Okay, then I will go with expensive.
Expensive. Shannon, give me a location.
This room that I'm in. My apartment.
Specifically Shannon's apartment.
My
Okay.
apartment.
Liana, give me a verb ending in ing.
Oh, boiling.
Boiling. Shannon, give me a verb in the past tense ending in ed or d. And usually when you end in ed, you don't get much d.
Guest.
Guest.
Ing.
Guest?
Like guest. Oh, guest. Okay, guest.
Guested.
Gotcha. All right.
Like you. I'm guessing. But
yes,
guest
exactly.
in the past.
Liana, give me a noun.
A noun. The ocean.
Okay, just like Rachel's ideal place. Shannon, give me another noun.
Liana.
Okay. Liana, another noun besides yourself.
Can I say Shannon?
Sure.
We're in it
I
together.
hope we don't eat me.
I know. It's not an
I
animal,
get eaten.
Okay. Oh, Shannon, give me a virtue.
Kind?
Okay, I'll put
Is that what
kindness
you
in
meant?
there. Yeah,
Is
yeah.
that a virtue?
Yep.
Or like you
Kindness
mean
is a
in like,
virtue.
isn't
I
there
don't
like a
understand
religious
what-
sense of virtue? Like there's a list of like the virtues or something. It's like a thing.
I
Is that a
think you're
thing?
secular with it as well.
Yeah, but is that a thing? The virtues. Religion?
Okay, who is it? Liana, now give me another number.
Oh, another number. Okay. Infinity.
Love it. Shannon, give me a noun.
Mike Bloom.
We're all in it.
Yeah, we're all in it.
all in it.
What's the movie that this is from? Where the whole movie is like it was on the board in front. It's like The Usual Suspects or
What do you
it's like
mean?
a real Kaiser Sose.
Yes, that's Usual Suspects.
Okay, that's what I meant. You know, when like the whole movie's on the board behind him and it's like all
Yes.
the words. That's how.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Shannon, give me a verb in the past tense.
I've pretty much done all the things that I'm panicking. Panicked.
Panic.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Liana, give
Just
me
gonna
a
get to
verb.
breathing next.
Drowned? To
All right,
drown?
That works. Shannon, an adjective.
Nice.
Nice. Well, on that note, Liana, there is
Moving
a
into draft.
certain number you haven't listed yet, and the next thing I need you to give is a number.
Oh, 69.
There we go.
You said
Yay.
square root of 69. What is it?
Oh, technically that's 8 something, right?
I was going to say that technically is not 69.
Hooray!
All right, Shannon, give me another verb in the past tense.
Struggled.
All right. Liana, give me another subject in school.
Oh, okay. I will go with what are things that you study in school? Hold on. Homeroom.
Recess.
I already said
Homeroom.
recess. We're going with homeroom this time.
All right. Okay.
Did we do it?
Yep, we did
no.
it. Apologies,
Uh-oh.
that was a bit of a long one, but it should be because
Crazy.
I scripted out the entirety of the rice negotiation.
Oh
and
my
we're going to be
gosh.
reading your
Oh my
version
God.
right now.
Okay.
Still not balls.
So Jeff describes everything. Balls. Andy, don't put them in your mouth.
Balls.
And then he says,
Cut to Andy and he's just got a mouthful of balls.
there's no rule against it. Like, you can't touch it with your hand, but he's like, ooh.
I know. He did ogle it.
It's like that guy that can fit a bunch of billiard balls in his mouth. Like, that's a way to hack the challenge, Peridium.
Is that a thing?
I don't think that is a way to hack. Oh yeah. Oh right. So So if Andy could have fit all 3 balls in his mouth,
Which,
he could have
who
won.
among us?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you just put them in your mouth. You unhinge your jaw.
Exactly. He said he's a
wanna move
snake.
on.
Like, he can...
Slither.
Spiders, I'm assuming, can unhinge their jaws as well.
I
All
wish
right,
to move
so...
on.
All right, well, let's move on to this then. So Jeff, before getting to the challenge, says, there's one more element to today's challenge. It's been 6 days without any rice. That can all change. He brings out a big red or black structure on the stump. That's a licorice of rice enough to get you to the end. This is the rice negotiation. I need 66 people to sit out in exchange for rice.
Oh, wow.
This is always a reflection of where the game is. Because on the surface, the crunchy deal is 66 people agree to sit out. You agree tonight, we won't speak you out. We'll all have rice. That's not how the Golden Girls works.
Nuh-uh.
It's never that easy.
I would have screwed it
The
up.
Arthur would never allow that to happen.
And it would be great if 66 people felt safe enough that they could sit across. But I don't think that...
Oh, imagine 66 people playing Survivor, though. Like, what chaos. Okay.
That has
Somebody
had
wants
bad
to have a
international
picture.
versions where that happened. It's
That's
like
true.
over 100 people. It's not super far from Australian Survivor.
But I don't think that's where the game is right now.
No.
I think everybody's still on very thin ice and very much wanting that ring a little bit more than the rice, which an
Yeah.
immunity ring would be pretty dang killer.
Also, it's
That's
so
really
fair.
cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool, actually.
Is that true? Anybody instantly say, I consider sitting across for rice? Gabe replies, push it to the square root of 69. Jeff says, no, the set price is 66. Caroline floats out, what if 2 of us gave up our cat toys?
Oh, see, that
Jeff
would be
says-
hard. That's a lot of cat toys that I have.
Jeff says, no. Kyle replies, what if you got all the cat toys?
Wow, this sounds awesome.
Oh, what a deal.
Jeff says,
Jeff needs a cat,
every-
and he's like, yes.
Every cat toy down the line? Wow. Everybody here willing to give up your cat toy on only day 11:59 p.m.
So I think that's the first day. Like, it's not
Yeah,
midnight
exactly.
yet.
Here,
That's as
I'll
far
give
as
it.
they've made
I'll
it.
give the cat toy.
Wow, all of them?
Wow,
Yeah.
all of them.
Wow.
It's not even midnight yet on the first day. And you're already willing to do this.
Yeah.
Wow.
So then everyone starts chiming in. I would do it. I would do it. Rachel says, I don't have one. Assuming she gave away her cat toy, or she lost it at some
Yeah.
point. Jeff says, I just want to make sure you're podcasting clearly, because this is a massive sacrifice from where I slime over here.
Yeah.
The cat toy is your last microphone.
Mm-hmm.
Your Hail Callahan. Your one last chance.
That's what I always say. You know, throw that one last Callahan.
Or your Hail Callahan.
Hail Callahan.
Sam says, you know, he's really going through it. He goes, I'll do it if everyone... I'm sitting. Listen, I'm sitting. And Jeff says, Sam, walk me through the reason you're expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Which makes me feel like he's some sort of like high-price escort or something.
Escort, yeah, exactly. Your price is so high.
Sam, what's the price tag here? Sam says, yeah, I mean, I'm in Shannon's apartment. I've been in Shannon's apartment. And it's easy for the people on the top to say, I don't need my cat toys. But when you feel like that might be your only choice at boiling in this game, that rice, I could go eat rice after I get guessed out. Gabe replies, your ocean is more powerful than that cat toy. Your vote is how you got out of Shannon's apartment. By giving people your Liana.
Oh.
Sam says, I've been offering my Liana. Nobody wanted to take it.
No one wants Liana.
No.
Gabe says, and you're still here. You're still here because you have a Shannon. And if you want to leave... So Sam is also an escort, but also maybe a bit of a pimp as well.
He's also living in Shannon's apartment,
he
but
has-
escaped, which is
and
like, did
has
you hold
me?
him hostage? And also, I'm useless, which
Yeah.
might make sense.
And
Oh,
and
right,
if
because
you-
of that lip. Yeah.
And if you want to lean on your challenge kindness, that rice is going to help it. If you feel like you're in Shannon's apartment, that rice is more valuable to win an immunity ring than get a 1 in infinity shot chance at immunity. Which does feel like actually like
That
not
is-
even lowballing. The
Yeah.
shot in the dark feels like it's 1 in infinity at some point. Sam looks down, takes a pause. I'm not going to keep rice from Mike Bloom.
Oh.
You guys get good stuff.
How could you? No one would want to do that.
So then Jeff follows up on that. So Gabe panicked you. And
Not bad.
Sam goes, sure.
Sure.
Jeff says, everybody who has a cat toy is prepared to drown it right now. I'll make that deal. Very nice to see if this comes back. To have a little 69 guess at some point. You're all
Hey.
willing to give it up? I'll take them. As Jeff is collecting them, Kyle says, can't believe I struggled something. Jeff says, you were in on Survivor Homeroom here. Survivor Homeroom for sure. Thank you. All the cat toys in exchange for 1 licorice of rice waiting for you back at camp. Well done. And I will say well done to the two of you as well.
Jeez, I want Sam out of this
Yay.
apartment. He's welcome, but as a guest where I'm aware of it, not against my knowledge.
Right.
Yeah.
Like he's hiding in your walls, or like has moved into
Is
your
he?
attic and is creepily
I don't have it.
living
It's an apartment. I don't have an attic.
that you know of.
That you know
Maybe
of.
Sam's up there.
Sam,
And he's I mean, listen,
Come
he can easily
down.
he can source all those cat toys. Like he's in surplus right now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He's
well,
been
that's good.
slowly collecting them one at a time so he
Yeah.
can trade them to Jeff.
that's where we've been missing Lizzie's bird for weeks, and we assume it's under the couch.
Sam
That's my
has
favorite
it.
toy. Give
Well,
it
it's under-
back,
it's under-
Sam.
It's under the couch in Jeff Probst's office, because that's where I'm assuming he did with all the shots in the dark.
Or the couch that they had to push up.
Yeah.
in the
Sam
yeah.
couch, which
with-
is-
Oh, what about the couch in the dark?
Oh, okay. So you want to play your couch in the dark, but you get up off the couch, but you're sitting?
So the couch in the
Sit up?
dark is an advantage where you go into a dark room and you have 5 minutes to search for an advantage, but it's pitch black. And sometimes
under
there
the
might be,
cushions
and so
of the
sometimes there's a
couch.
disadvantage in there. Sometimes there might be an idol.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's like a more low budget Ghost Island.
Right, because it's a couch in the dark.
It's just a couch in a dark room.
Ghost Island wasn't super high budget, I don't think.
Exactly, so that's saying
think
something.
if it's an immunity ring, Jeff would have to propose. They should do that.
Well, he does officiate, so.
Yeah.
Well, they should consider other
Jewelry.
other pieces of jewelry.
And
Imagine
we
an
only had
immunity
the sword one.
crown.
Crown? Yeah. Crown would be brilliant.
That's pretty cool.
Trying
An
to think
anklet.
Brooch?
A brooch. Yes. And they have to wear it, which would be funny. Because
And imagine,
you
like for all the guys who don't wear a shirt, like them pinning it to their chest.
I guess
they
like
lost 0.2% of them.
the immunity idols look a bit like bracelets now. So they are expanding into a bit of a line. A very ugly line of jewelry. Like, do not buy that for your partner.
So should it, let's expand it further. Let's go from accessory to garment. Should it be an immunity shirt?
That would make, so imagine if it was like a reward, like you get like, we've seen jackets be such hot commodities. If it was like a Letterman jacket that you win and then you're going to be warm, that would actually be like a bit of a reward.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that. But then you still have to give it back. It would be kind of gross. So, like, do you wash them? Like, do you think they wash them in between? Probably.
Do you wash them? I mean, I guess the necklace you don't wear as much, so it's not like it doesn't matter if you wash it. So
you think they care about that? They're all wearing each other's clothes. They're not gonna be. Do you wash it? They're on Survivor.
Oh yeah, I mean, they won't mind.
I just imagine all right, tonight I'm gonna give individual immunity to Liana.
Like strip off. Oh my gosh! Or you could do. What about immunity idol socks?
Oh, I like that. I mean, you talk about hiding in plain sight. I think that immunity idol like garb would be very fun. Like, especially if it was, I don't know, boxers that read like idol beware on the butt or something.
That's good. Well, I was thinking like the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. So it's the same thing. It's a pair of jeans, but it fits everybody.
Oh my God. Haven't you put on jeans on the island when like you're wet and sandy? I would rather not even have the idol.
Tribal council.
Well, what is interesting is like people oftentimes keep an idol, right, in their bra, in their crotch. Like, what if the beware of the beware advantage was that it was a piece of wardrobe you had to wear that was like, insert idol here, like that's but people think it's like so cheeky, like you got that specially made for the season, not realizing that's where the idol is.
It's actually an idol.
Yeah, I think that in recent years they're probably trying to stray away from things like that are really drawing attention to all of that. I think it's going to be really hard for me to get back on track for the chizzy. I don't even remember what happened in the episode. Like, where are we? Words.
Don't you remember meaning. They all gave away their cat toys to get a thing full of licorice?
Yep.
And then they all pushed a couch with their heads.
Yep.
That of which one of them may or may not have lost a significant part of their body doing so.
And no one wanted Liana. That's what
Yeah.
I've tried to give away Liana. No one wants Liana. I'm begging people. I can't try paying people. They won't do it.
Story of my life.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Vouch for how relevant that is.
Anyway, so yeah, strategy.
Chizzy, Shannon, you want to introduce it?
Take it away, Jacob. Say Weinstein in an MC color.
2, 3. 1, 1, 1, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It's getting kind of chizzy. 3, 2, 1.
And now, because we're on video, we have the charts as well. Here they are.
Ooh.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. The chizzy. We're doing 2-1-1 points, but it's important which one is one, right? Because it would be 3-2-1. So even though it's 2-1-1, the order of the ones matters to the chart. So who wants to go first?
Okay, well, I will give my 2 to Sam this week. I think for me, I have to acknowledge the fact that he was the one who was originally pushing Gabe. And also he's the one who got credit, at least narratively, for creating this sort of Misfits alliance. I think he was also able to protect himself as someone else who's coming across as sort of another really big player. So I will give my 2 to Sam.
Yep. And
do I give my other ones now?
Yeah, we don't go around.
Oh,
so not hard enough for me to do math on this fly.
Think about it.
Oh, you gotta figure out which one is the one to one.
Yeah, I know, because this really, really matters.
It really does a lot. It should probably be what breaks the tie, but it doesn't even do that. Like in the
right.
Yeah.
Okay, I will give one to Andy. Mainly just because we got my first one to Andy. I think mainly because we got the montage of him creating all of these relationships, and also it seems like the vote went in a direction that he was happy with. So for that reason, I will give one to Andy.
The better one.
The better one, yes. And then I will give the worst one to Teeny.
The Liana of ones.
The Liana of ones, yes. And wait,
give it
who would-
away.
okay, I think it would go Shannon, Mike, Liana then for the 2-1-1 points based on the
and I
story.
feel bad. No, oh, right,
Based
in
on
the story.
in
I'm
real
like, in
life,
life,
obviously it goes
no.
Liana, big gap, everybody else. But for the story, so
Yeah.
Right,
so
because
Liana
Gabe told
point-
Sam, "You're still here because you have a Shannon." Then he
Mhm.
said, "I'm not going to keep rice from Mike Bloom." And then, of course,
Everyone
you
hates
know,
Liana.
you're the vote. You gave away your Liana. I've been offering my Liana. Nobody wanted to take it.
Yeah, exactly. So for the Liana of points, I will go to Team Liana, and that is Teeny, whomst I drafted. So that will be my second of the singular points, because I do feel that this could potentially be an inflection point in Teeny's game, where this is now the sort of rising from the ashes. How is Teeny going to get out of the situation where they're constantly left out of votes? And we got a ton about their story. So that's my 2-1-1.
Yes, Mike. What's your 2
Okay.
on 1?
Looks pretty similar. I'll give 2 to Andy. Just because I still personally think that the way it was personified to us is that I don't know if Sam gets this vote done without Andy sort of being someone to be the turnkey here. And the fact that he not only is so well seated with so many people, like if you think about the 5 that were the non-Tukus, Andy is working with Sam, he's working with Rachel, he's working with Genevieve. Teeny, I'm not sure, but like there seems to be times when the two of them would commiserate together. So it seems like if he does want to roll with this group moving forward, he has done really well to, I think, be able to move in any direction that he wants to. Maybe unlike someone like Sam, who is now presented as probably one of the larger targets from whatever realm should it happen again. And yeah, I think this was probably the most visible week of Andy's game, despite the fact that he ends up kind of helping single-handedly get rid of Sierra a couple of weeks ago. That felt more of like a personal arc. This felt more of a strategic arc to me of like, this is Andy's deliberate movements. We'll see, you know, he might get caught with his hand in the cookies and cream jar if Rachel and Genevieve compare notes of like, oh my God, Andy's trying to pit us against each other. But for right now, I think he's gotten himself in a really good position. And I do believe that this Gabe vote won't happen without him. I will give the better one to Sam then, for all the reasons that Liana said. The fact is, this is really the first vote of the merge that he has been able to dictate. It's a good time to pick up momentum, and he was able to get this done, and also maybe also low-key get rid of a bit of a challenge threat for himself as well, if he does have a path to possibly winning his way to the end. And then the other one, I think I'll give it to Teeny as well. I was thinking of maybe giving it to Rachel, but I think the way that we were basically shown that Rachel got her less ideal outcome in this episode, it's tough for me to give the 1 to. Teeny, I think their ability to at least try to save face with Genevieve in the moment. I know Genevieve has expressed like, yep, and this means we won't work together anymore, but the fact that they were able to work together here hopefully means that as Teeny is promising in their vote for Saul that they are going to avenge him, it's setting up maybe an opportunity for Teeny to make their big, almost Marianne cuts Omer move at the final 7, final 6, and then cement themselves as a front runner. So all that is to say, that's going to be my 2-1-1.
Yeah, okay. So we're all, again, looking at that kind of, outcast 4. I'm giving the 3/now 2 to Sam, because I feel like he is the instigator here. And from what we saw made it happen. I mean, I think they're all doing it, but he really seemed to drive it. And I think he also did some other good stuff, like as an example, Carl brings up Gabe, but I think he does really well to push it. And like, contrary to like Andy pushing Genevieve to Rachel, where I think like, okay, I get it from Rachel and it makes sense. I don't think it makes sense for Carl. So Carl, I feel like it's like an unforced error, but also Sam's actually manipulating that where it's to Sam's benefit, but not to Carl. So yeah, top points to Sam. The better one I'm giving to Teeny. Good connection with Sam. I mean, I think we forget that Teenie and Sam have not been on the same page at all and have reconnected here in a way that was really good. And I think that the patience is good because I think like, oh, well, I want revenge on Sol, so I have to immediately do Genevieve. Like, you'll do Genevieve next time. Like, the better plan for Teenie's game was very much to do with all of them to do a Tuku now, and then hopefully for them come for Genevieve next. So I think it was good patience, good, being part of the plan, good timing. And I'm going to give a point to Rachel. While I disagree on Jen as a target, it's not like a huge disagreement. I see parts of it. I don't even think it's that risky because Tuku want to come for each other. Even though she doesn't get her way, I think it works for everyone. But the main thing for me is that her winner path is so clear. She's in such a good spot. She's such a good connector. She reconnects well with Sam. Like, all that stuff is so material. I see the path for her. I see the potential. I think she could sit at the end and have cool things to talk about. They'll love how she gauged on the Shot in the Dark, the same way Twitter did, And if she can use her idol well, I really see it. So I'm giving her the point there. I have to give an honorable mention to Andy. I left him out of those 4.
Wow. Who are you? Sam and Sierra leaving Andy out?
Well, I give Andy a lot of points, and I think there's a lot of good material stuff there. Like, Caroline goes to him, right? As that's what we see for the Gabe plan. Obviously we see with the previously on how much it was him, including Teenie, and Teenie doesn't blow that up. And Teenie, we talk about the Andy Teenie connection, like that must be there. Like, he gives Teenie the information on burying Genevieve, and all that stuff is good. But I just have to, at some point question what anyone else is thinking, and if no one else is agreeing with the perception of him, it's just an easier game to play because he can't win. And I do think that's a distinct possibility. So while he's doing all this stuff, the second someone else vouches for me, like Andy is, really changed his perception, or like any point where I'm hearing it from other people, I would give it to him. But yeah, I don't think that that's there right now. I also had a question for you guys.
Yes.
That I was just thinking, because I'm thinking about like Andy, pitting people against each other. Is Kyle really going around calling Sue and Caroline Tweedledee and Tweedledum? Because if so, that's very, very bad from Kyle. Saying it to people who are going to then run it back to Sue, saying it at all, from a personal level, from a game level, that's not great. If it's not true, I guess Andy, even more driving the wedge between them because Sue didn't like that. It's not hard to drive the wedge. But like, yeah, if Kyle's doing that, I mean, I can't put it all on Sue, right? Like, wow, Sue really hates Kyle. If he's doing that and calling them Tweedledee and Tweedledum, it feels like, it takes 2 to tango at a point, and maybe I should criticize both of you, and I should criticize Kyle for the fact that so many people want to come for him. Like, it seems crazy from Sue, and it probably is to a degree, but like, you have to criticize Kyle at a point for the fact that these maybe relationships are bad, and this might be an indication of the fact that more of it is on him than him just being kind of like a victim in like a one-sided negative relationship circumstance there.
Yeah, it's a fair point. I mean, on the one hand, I would say like, well, if he was saying these things, he'd probably be complaining in confessional, so why aren't we getting any of that? On the other hand, it might be, how do they want to edit Kyle? They want to have him be this sort of like shining beacon of positivity. I give it $120 for my family every time. And so it could be possible. I mean, hell, someone like Rome said, oh yeah, my relationship with Saul was not as one-sided as it was presented. Like, I think there are 2 sides to every dynamic. And I do find it interesting that we have not really heard from Kyle in confessional about his thoughts on Sue. Surely he knows at this point that she has been coming after him in so many ways over the past 16 days. So yeah, I mean, I don't want to necessarily jump to that conclusion, but it is interesting how we really haven't gotten anything from the other side. The 2 possibilities being either this is a Shambo Laura Moret situation and he has no idea how much Sue really dislikes him, or the other side, which is he's saying stuff about her and they just aren't showing it.
I think what happened is there's a universe where Kyle and Andy were having a one-off conversation, and Kyle goes, I don't want to do a Kyle impression, but like I can hear it in his voice.
Do it.
Of like, oh, well, they're like Tweedledum and Tweedledee kind of thing, on like a very offhanded comment. And he takes that. Like, and so because he's saying I'm pitting people against each other, probably using information that's not 100% made up, because that goes back to you like Rome. So there's probably some truth to it, but it's not, I don't think Kyle is going around being like, what is this, Alice in Wonderland?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like, if you're Kyle, how do you recover from that? Like, no, those are actually my favorite characters in children's literature.
Yeah, people don't want to be called that. Like, would you guys like being called the Tweedledee and Tweedledum of Survivor commentary?
Kind of, yeah. Implied, yeah.
Well, maybe that's the wrong example. I wouldn't like it, okay? So even if you're like, yeah, you're using it as a way to say they connected, it's not good. I mean, I think that what we know from Kyle is we saw him say that like he said Caroline wasn't good at challenges, right, to Rome. He said that they were very close. He didn't seem very high on their games. And Rome said he'd said something really bad, and we never found out what that was. And now
maybe it was Tweedledee and Tweedledum.
Maybe that was it. Genuinely, that's what I'm thinking, because I'm like,
Yeah.
I mean, can Andy just go around throwing out lies? Or is his game so protected because people don't care if they sit next to him that he's that well insulated that this stuff doesn't matter? Is he making it up? Or did he, like, I think this is important, because I do think, like, as much as I say that, you know, it takes two to tango, no, relationships can be very, very one-sided. Kyle, and the edit we have from Kyle, he very much doesn't deserve it, and certainly, like, montages, but, like, if he's saying equally as bad stuff back but is not getting the montage, possibly, you know, there's more of a dynamic that we have to look at. And maybe if Sue's a losing finalist, the edit is showing more like her being unreasonable. And she is being unreasonable about the vote stuff. That is stupid. That's objectively dumb. Tweedledum. But I do think, like, you know, how negative is it from Kyle? How much is there, like, that's not the edit that we get of Kyle. But I do think it's important.
What if, here's how you spin this if I'm Kyle. I'm like, well, you know who won 2 seasons ago? D. So I'm saying you're the Tweedle version of D, and you and Sue are so close, so you're linked together.
That's what they used to say about Julie and D. She's Tweedle D and she's Tweedle Julie, and they're like, who's Tweedle Julie? What's going on? There's no positive way to spin Tweedle D and Tweedledum. That's like, it's like the anti cookies and cream cake of insults to compliment. It's not good. It's bad. But also then it's like, how much has she just been, like, openly bitching about Kyle for weeks to the point where he now has snapped? Like, we don't know it from his dynamic, I think, because we get, like, quite a one-dimensional view of Kyle. I'm not even saying that's not who he is. I'm just saying that, I mean, I don't have more of it from him. I have to question how much of that is true. Because for Kyle, it's all been criticizing, why don't Tuku want to stay together? And I do criticize that. Like, why, you know, but for Kyle, it's like, well, why doesn't anyone want to work with you? You know, like, where are your allies? And at a point you have to ask that. But I don't know. If Andy made it up, I'm going to feel bad, because then it is poor, sweet Kyle just being like, I'm a family man. And she's just being like, you know, and then Sue tweeted being like, I just want to clarify.
Tweedledeed or Tweedledum?
Tweedledeed. Tweedledum is Twitter and Tweedledee is
Blue Sky.
Yeah. Can I find Sue's actual Tweedledee? Or Tweedledum, should I say? I don't know if she's on Blue Sky. What is Sue's at? Why can't I find it?
I believe it's at the Sue Smay or something like that.
Sue. Okay, I can't find it. But my point is, it was something like, I don't want to kill Kyle. I'm like, that makes it sound like you do. The fact that you have to clarify.
It was a link to Sue. So Sue says, just so everyone's aware, ... I never have and never plan on killing anyone, ... Welcome to the game of #Survivor. All caps, it's all love, parentheses, unless you write my name down, wink face emoji, blue heart emoji.
Oh, Kyle's like dead now. Like, Kyle, like, has anyone have Kyle's whereabouts?
Yeah, nobody brought up the idea of killing someone.
No one's like, oh my god,
she just say, I'm gonna kill you, Kyle.
Yeah, like, if she had said, like, you know, it gets tense in the game, but it's all love, you'd be like, that's fine. That's a fine way to respond to the montage of you hating Kyle. But her being like, it sounds like a legal letter. Like, I just want to say, I'm like, now it sounds like you've done that. Okay.
Tweedle, yeah. Tweedle doth protested too much, right? Like, no one said, Sue, like, no one said you were actually gonna kill Kyle. Why do you feel the need to emphatically say that you would never kill Kyle?
I mean, this is not you being Shane Powers right now. Like, it's an expression. I didn't actually know that you were gonna kill someone.
My God. Well, yeah, it was just so suspect, and I'm just concerned. But anyway, that's my thoughts on the Tweedledee and Tweedledum of it all. This was kind of like, was that not this collaboration?
Yeah.
Global's the Tweedledee and the B&B's the Tweedledum, and that's how we collaborate.
That.
I mean, again, the Tweedledee and Tweedledum of Survivor commentary, that's actually amazing. I think we need to steal that. I think we're going to steal that. So
I think we're going to use it now. I think I might introduce that moving forward.
I mean, 100. Wait, I need the charts, though. I haven't given the charts.
Oh, okay. So I didn't know that you were doing math.
No, I did the math. So well, Genevieve's at the top, and will Genevieve get surpassed if she goes next week? I don't know. I thought she had it.
We have one extra episode of Chizzy points.
It's quite a lot.
For this 2-part finale.
we'll see how much more she can survive. But yeah, I was really interested in her take on emotionality, as you mentioned, because she's like, I don't want to play this game with connections. It's like, no, like your connections and your emotional relationships in the game are your superpower. Like that's been the thing of why everyone's so drawn to her. So yeah, if I was Teeny, I'd feel pretty used when she's like, I don't want to have any connections. And like you're basically, if it kind of felt like it was like after a one night stand, it's like, oh, like a, you know, a fling where you're like, this is why I don't want to get emoemotionally attached. And Teeny's like, but that's like a whole thing, you know, like this is the whole game of Survivors, emotional attachments. She's like, this is why I just wanted something casual, Teeny. So that's how it felt. Yeah, Genevieve, so we'll see. 21, Soul Next has left on 18. Now Sam is up to 16. Andy is up to 14. Teeny's gone up to 12. We have Sue not killing anyone on 9. We have Rachel now on 7. Caroline's on 7. Gabe left on 4. Kyle 3. And then Tiana and Asia on 1. And those are the charts. So we'll see. I think it's wide open, actually.
Yeah, so I'm just counting right now. So we have the final 8. Are all 8 of them on the Chizzy charts? It looks like they are.
Yes. Yeah, the only one who wasn't from like the merge was Sierra, and I felt bad about it, and that's been like an ongoing thing. Yeah,
and that goes to show as well, again, the sort of like ever-shifting power that Jeff likes to talk about, the fact that like everyone has kind of had their moment, maybe not even in the driver's seat, but like clearly making moves and guiding the game in their direction rather than sort of at the behest of their allies. And that's cool. It helps when, of course, all 3 tribes go to tribal council in the pre-merge. So that's exciting. Yeah, Sam is only 5 points behind Genevieve, you know, to the point we made earlier, the pendulum might easily swing back in his direction, but like he could overtake her. Andy might if he makes a late surge, or Genevieve could immediately get power back now that she has her feet out from under her and could make another big thing to like run away with another week like she did during Keyshawn and during the Sol vote as well.
Yeah, I mean, Teeny is like, how many weeks are left?
So we have 11, 12, and now we have the 2-part finale, which is 13, 14. So
like anyone could win. Like if Rachel gets, you know, cleans it up now, she's on 7, she could well surpass Genevieve, right? There's 24 points left. So no, actually, yeah, she could well surpass Genevieve. So there's more points up for grabs if you were to get 6 points for the next 4 weeks than Genevieve even has. So literally, Kyle could win. So that's where we're at. He probably won't, but he could. Anyway, this was fun.
This was great.
Yay.
Am I right about time?
Yeah, 6 a week. That's right.
Yeah. Quickly, any thoughts about the recent announcement of there being like some people are putting this in massive quotations, some small, the 2-part finale that essentially they are going to be doing 2 2-hour installments instead of like an hour and a half for the final 6 and then the 3-hour block from the final 5 to the final 3?
Like, yeah, that's not a 2-part finale. That's stupid. I mean, it's just the verbiage. It's like they did this on Australian Survivor when it was like the finale week, instead of being 3 episodes, was 2 and then 1, and they were like, it's all finale week. And I'm like, it's kind of like finale 8 days.
Yeah.
But it's not, it's the penultimate week. And it's because we didn't have a double boot.
Yeah.
And we didn't have anyone get medevaced or anyone quit.
Yeah, so which I'm personally fine with. Like, yes, it's worth a bit of awkward shuffling around of time slots and Survivor having to claim this is a brand new thing if it's that we don't have this like, yes, we did the split tribal council vote, but like not having to throw so many things in at the early merge to basically like eschew as many people as possible and screw over the people like the Sifus and the Tims that are like, oh, because your group lost the immunity challenge, now you're on the jury anymore. Bye.
Yeah, I have no opinion. It's like, whatever, fine, call it whatever.
It's an extra episode of
I'll watch
Survivor.
it.
Yeah, I mean,
exactly.
I think it'll be weird. So I mean, I would have liked like in 45 if we got the final 5 vote as its own thing. But it will be weird if we're getting, in which we're not, we're getting 6 and 5. And 6 can often be quite a big vote, but it'll be very strange if what we're getting is no votes, right? Like it's final for fire making.
Yeah. So that's my assumption, is that because also in the 3-hour finale, the final 5 vote usually pretty much takes up the first hour anyway, because there's a challenge and there's actual strategy that needs to happen. And then there's the vote.
The scavenger hunt before the challenge.
Yeah, exactly. And then after that, it's a bit more on autopilot, where like they almost always just cut immediately to the next immunity challenge. And so that is the only thing I think is a downside, is that it maybe does defang the actual finale a little bit, in that, okay, it'll be final 4, and then final tribal council, and then the after show. And it might be the first time in Survivor history where the final episode of a show did not feature someone's torch getting snuffed. Or no, I'm sorry, nobody getting voted out.
Voted out, yeah.
Well, I mean, in international, we've had literally finales that are just final tribal council.
Yeah.
So like,
it's all fine. We get one more week of Survivor. We'll get one more week of the B&B. We'll get one more week of Global. But before we get to those plugs, Shannon, I guess this gives you an opportunity to save face
save the cats. Oh my
the
god,
Mad Lib that you added earlier. What would you like to plug this week as a charity?
Okay, don't eat cats. Don't put them in your wraps. This could be a bit of a wrap itself. Don't eat cats. Don't put them in your wraps. Yes.
What if you want to rap about a cat?
I do all day, every day. Believe me. I literally named them after Hamilton so I could rap about them. Yeah, you can donate to Sydney Dogs and Cats Home, which was the adoption agency that facilitated the adoption of my girls. That's my charity. But I wanted to say, it's coming up to 2 important seasons. Christmas, obviously the holiday season, and breeding season for animals. And I knew Mike would take that and run with it. So that's why I specifically clarified it. I can see his face. Don't do it.
Humans are animals.
This is when kittens and puppies are born. And I just want to remind everyone to adopt, don't shop. It's so important. There are so many animals out there that need homes. And they're just as good as breeded animals. They're amazing. And also, if you're thinking about it, like, get pets. They make the whole world better, and adopt. And there are so many animals that need homes. And if you're in Sydney and you're looking to adopt a cat or cats and you don't know where to go, I have 2. I'm willing to give away. No.
Oh my god. Pets are the best. Also, they could be freely exchanged, like a shot in the dark.
I'd sooner cut off my ear, as we all have to give our ears to Jeff. But I do work with some groups that facilitate adoptions, and there are so many cats that need homes. So if you're looking for cats, just DM me and we can get you a great cat. Probably not my 2. I'm probably going to keep those, but they're a cat. So please adopt, don't shop. And that is what I wanted to say.
We've been coming up with slogans this entire podcast. I can't think of a better slogan for pets than "They won't blindside you."
Well, you get blindsided at 4 a.m. if they're running amok, but it's worth it. It's worth it. Yeah.
Well, this was a collaboration so worth it as well. And I know that we will undergo our podcast mitosis and split back into our respective shows next week. But Shannon, what do you want to tease about Global?
Yes.
If any people just check this out as like their first dance into it, I guess we sort of did a little bit of a hybrid of it, but what are you going to get into over the next month with Survivor 47?
Well, again, we get this, spreadsheets and stuff like that I still think was clear. Okay. And I think I said it right. Next week, Nick Iadanza will be my guest. So that's always really, really fun. Always love that. You can follow me at Shannon Gates. I'm on Blue Sky as well. Twitter, Instagram, all of that. Reach out if you want a cat. Subscribe. International Survivor RHAP B&B. We have our own feed as well. This has been on YouTube every week. First season, we've done that. And I want to plug, we're doing a draft check-in, Liana, but you can't make it.
No, I will be traveling that day. So
you're traveling. Does that mean that Sol and Gabe went out back to back, and now you're traveling? Is that yeah? But you still have Teeny. So you're in a great.
I do.
Though I am intrigued to see. Obviously, Sol's look, like maybe top 10 jury look of all time, and that's not shading Sierra as well. She looks absolutely gorgeous. Is Gabe gonna try to one up him next week?
I think that's the Gabe way.
Yes.
Everyone's
I can't
just
wait.
Shirtless and like that'd be so distracting. Like everyone
get progressively more and more naked.
the strip poker of juries. Like, what is going on at Ponderosa? But anyway, draft check-in will be live 7 p.m. Tuesday ET. That's Wednesday morning, 11 a.m. Sydney time. You guys can work out all the other time zones, but
is this just going to be like all of you kind of going around talking about how right or wrong you were about the draft?
Yeah, we did it last season. It was super fun. If Rachel, I even DM'd Rachel and I was like, if you don't survive this week, I can't go to the draft check. And she's my last, but now I think Rachel's going to win. So I'm coming in super cocky. And I'm excited about it. So we're going to talk about all of that. Liana, is there anything you want? Is there any insult you want to give people that you can't give to Puya that I should deliver for you? Is there anything you want to?
No, but
I specifically said Puya and nobody else.
Well, no, as in like she could tell Puya to give us a message, but instead it would be easier to just tell me right now.
I mean, Shannon, this could be yours to take. And that kind of
excites
me.
Do not.
That's the cookies and cream comment for Shannon.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I was thinking this week, like, should I pre-order my tiara? But with that, then I'm gonna get very upset if I
Do you just
lose.
not watch
Don't
the episode
jinx
when
it.
Gabe's
Don't
like,
jinx it.
I'm the most comfortable
Yeah.
I've ever been in the game.
That's
This
me
is-
that's so me though. That's who I am. That's
Don't
yeah.
jinx
I mean,
it.
I don't think it's good, but it is who I am. So I think maybe I should pre-order the tiara because it's like if Rachel wins, then it will take some time to come here with shipping. Or maybe I
Yeah,
should just see
exactly.
where I could get a tiara that I could quickly drive and buy one.
Well, or just don't make it season specific, and then you can just hold on to it in the off chance that if you lose, and you can win a future.
But I probably won't, Liana. Let's be quite honest. This is my best chance.
Hey.
This one right here. So
You never know. But listen, you got more seasons on the horizon.
Exactly.
Anyway, Rachel, I beg you. Okay. Why are you looking at me like that? I'm not doing anything, Mike. You're crazy. You're the one who's weird. You're Tweedledum.
Yes.
I'm the Tweedledee.
I'm not denying any of those accusations.
Don't look
by
at me
the
like
way.
I'm crazy. You're crazy.
I mean, both can be true. That's why I love you. All right. Well, Liana, what do you have to plug this week? Masked Singer, of course, preparing for the big Turkey Day.
Yes, exactly. We got to talk Miley Cyrus night, so that was very fun. And you follow me on Blue Sky at Lianaism.
Also, the Masked Singer, I found out, is airing on Thanksgiving night.
Yeah, I know. They just announced it. They're doing a Peanuts theme, and then it's airing actually on Thanksgiving, which we thought was definitely a choice. But
I mean, maybe they assume that like people will just be kind of sitting around doing nothing.
yeah, put it on for the kids in the evening when the adults are watching football. I don't know.
Should Survivor do that instead? Air because they did air, of course, on Thursday nights back in the day. That's why they actually skipped a week with Thanksgiving and aired recap episodes. Should they go back to Thursday nights because it is such a family show?
Such a family show.
Except for when Andy is anywhere near a challenge.
I know.
You can follow me at a Mike Bloom type. I'll plug my interview with Gabe, which was a lot of fun. Of course, he had a lot to say about his various relationships, how he wanted to proceed forward, etc. All the usual stuff. The one thing that I will plug that was a little different this week was I got to talk some Dancing with the Stars, which was very fun because it's the show I low-key cover for Parade. We talked about the penultimate episode that really did feel like a two-part finale because nobody got eliminated, so everyone's moving on to the finale, and so kind of just sat through whatever we experienced for 2 hours. I was joined by Matt and QT from The Circle, which was a lot of fun. And hopefully you all had a lot of fun as well on this crossover. We'll all be back with our respective podcasts next weekend. I hope everyone has a really fantastic Thanksgiving. For anyone who celebrates, of course, I am personally thankful each and every opportunity I get to sit in front of this microphone and talk absolute nonsense with the Tweedledee to my Tweedledum in the form of Liana, and for such willing and able guests like Shannon to talk about a show that we still love, that's putting out awesome content like this episode week after week. Like we carry the 147 seasons in. It just brings me so much gratitude to get to be able to talk about this show still so many years in and to get to keep doing it and to keep playing these games. If you have game ideas, send them our way. RHAP B&B at gmail.com. Hashtag RHAP B&B. We're getting to the pointy end of the game, as people in Shannon's area like to say. We are accepting of any and all stuff you might have as we round the corner. We got one more episode of games we need to put out that we need to start planning for. So feel free to send us anything that you may have. Special thanks to the entire team at RJP behind the scenes for packaging this podcast for your eyes and your ears, and Will from America for his fantastic theme song. Liana and I will be back next weekend covering the Thanksgiving episode of Survivor 47. Until next time, everybody, we'll check you out at your next stay.